Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 230. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge on the comic forums, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim. Sean, I thought you said this was going to be a very quick, easy-to-edit episode. So says the Sensei of the Whatnot, Succulent, and the Duke of You Know.
How's it going, eh?
Jim and I'm going through my report card week and conferences week, and I know, Jim, you're having some really tough times
Fun
at work.
moments.
Yeah, because crazy work schedule as well. So we were both looking at, we want to get an episode out this week. We have a New York Comic Con content that we still have to edit together to put out as well. But I really said to Jim, Jim, let's do something casual off the cuff that I really don't have to edit. This is a very unedited episode, so kind of warning in the beginning. But what we decided to do is there's been so many great comics that have come out that we decided to put together something for you that would be a great chance for you guys to hear something kind of off the cuff from us. You still get an episode this week while giving us a little bit of time to edit together some of the segments that we've still got from New York to air and put together another episode for next week. I have conferences actually all next week as well in my classroom, and I've got to make that a priority. But we had some really I was really thinking when you and I were going to do this was going to be an hour and a half at the most. We wound up at like an hour and 20 minutes in our introductory discussion on just casual chat about some of the comics that have come out recently before we get to talking about Superman Earth 1. Definitely check the show notes to check the various comics that we have discussed on this episode, because it wound up being a lot bigger than we thought.
Yeah.
I thought this was going to be a quick thing, and then I would say we're going to come back on like Sunday with maybe some of the New York Comic Con segments or something like that. And I have a funny feeling I'm going to push that a little bit longer because of just how big this episode wound up being. But Jim, we are sponsored as always by DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. It's the beginning of November, so be sure to check out DCBService.com to check out the great pre-order deals. And over at our friends at InStockTrades.com. InStockTrades.com is your comic book collection source. They have collector's editions and trades, hardcovers, wonderful resource materials for comic fans. If you're looking for anything that's bound, you really want to be checking out our friends over at InStockTrades.com. Remember, orders of $50 or more have free shipping. So I want to thank InStockTrades.com and DCBService.com for continuing to support Raging Bullets. Jim, we are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. And without further ado, what kind of a podcast are we?
Well, Sean, we are a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're reviewing. So if we're going over something you haven't read, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
You're adding that enjoy now all the time, I've noticed. That's become a new part of your thing.
I like it.
I do. I like it too. I'm just noticing it. That's all. I hang on your every word.
Yeah, we know. We find out later.
All right. Let's talk some comics.
Can Batman escape? One hint, the worst is yet to come.
Jim, we said we're going to do this more casual anyway. I'm sure we're going to go very in-depth on Superman Earth 1, but you said there was something you wanted to make sure we got to, so why don't we just start with that?
Cool, man. Because I just really wanted to talk just a couple minutes, not even if that much, about the Ragman Suit of Souls One Shot. This was something that someone could very easily have passed up and not think twice about it because they're like, I don't really know Ragman. But for me, this was first and foremost, a really cool story. This was a very enjoyable read. Christos Gage, again, just loved the work that he does, so knock this one out. And this is a character I didn't know too much about. I had a pretty good understanding of the guy from the, and I'm drawing a blank on his Magic team right now.
Shadow Pact.
Thank you, Shadow Pact. I completely drew a blank on it, but through the Shadow Pact series, I got a pretty good understanding who the guy was. I thought he was a pretty cool character. But for me, this was a nice, just going back into his history, going back into his origin. It was a nice retelling of his origin and the origin of who is Ragman, what he's about, but it wasn't just that kind of story. There was a little bit more to it. There was just a nice exploration on what the character's done, what he's been, where he's come from, who is Ragman, not just the superhero, but the person behind the mask. And I thought that was something I really enjoyed, and I just, if people are looking for just a good read, pick this one up. Give it a chance, because this was something that I was like, I'd like to read more of this character. This is a guy that I'd like to see, again, either Shadow Pack come back, maybe a run of a little limited series on Ragman, or I probably would pick up a solo on the guy, just because I think there's a lot they could do with him.
I want to give a shout out, Jim, talking about, and I love that you brought that out, because there's two things I want to shout out just as quickly, but for similar reasons as far as what I thought this is a great way to hand off teams. Justice Society of America, 43 and 44. You saw a handing off, a passing of the torch, if you will, to a different creative team in that book. And I also like to talk about Teen Titans real quick for the same reason, because we saw two torches passing. And one of the things I really liked in both of these cases it was whichever version you liked. If you liked what was going on before, if you liked what's going on now, or if you liked both, I liked that the creative teams got the chance to wrap up what was going on and move on to something new without dropping us out of a storyline and into a new one with no closure. I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of when, it's all of a sudden we're dropped in a new creative team and everything that happened before didn't happen. It's kind of like, huh? What? These are serialized stories, so they're supposed to be a continuation. And I really liked in both of these cases how there was a nice wrap-up from what was going on before into the brand new transition. Issue number 43 of JSA, for example, had this great closure between Obsidian and Alan Scott off of the crossover from JSA and JLA. And what I really liked about this was you could have read this issue by itself, because you knew, if you just knew there was a big event that happened that involved Alan Scott. It was a very character-driven personal story between Obsidian and Alan Scott, where Obsidian's asking this question of his dad, saying, I can't ever be with my sister. The only way we can talk, the closest we can ever get is over the telephone. She's back from the dead. I got to see her for a brief amount of time. Realistically, for Obsidian, Jade is someone he's much closer to than his father. So this is huge. Before they had a relationship with Alan, before they were connected with him, they were everything to each other. This was a very strong family relationship between the two of them. And now to be told that you can't ever be together again, or else you'll merge into this being. And Obsidian's asking the questions like, would that be so bad? And Alan's trying to explain to him, here's what happens in all of these scenarios. And one of the things that I really liked about this is we got to see Alan and what is so hard about being a father figure in these worlds where you have godlike powers. He has not only his godlike powers being connected to the Starheart, where basically there's this community now of magic users that are congregating at the Starheart, but he's also got Dr. Fate, who's able to help him look through the future at possible scenarios, because he's trying to find ways to have put them back together. Is there any possible scenario where we could make this work for them? And he's explaining to Obsidian, and it's in a very cold, factual manner, this is what could happen in each of these cases. This is how everything that you do is going to become a disaster. And went through scenarios where heroes were destroyed. The whole of creation was annihilated over this. And Obsidian's, saying, don't you care about this? Isn't this bothering you? And really lashing out at him in a way that it felt like a violent emotion from a family member who's had their family taken from them. And I really liked the reality of this situation. I'm not knocking Alan Scott at all in this. It's more this shows Alan's experience in dealing with situations like this, in the sense that he didn't ignore it. He went to Dr. Fate and said, hey, let's play through all this. What can we do to help them? So he wasn't ignoring the situation. He actually shows that he's been on top of it all along, but it was really interesting to see Obsidian's reaction and how emotional and powerful that emotion was, and how the two of them were two family members who handled the situation differently. And because of Dad's what seemed like cold indifference to him, he was becoming very frustrated with his father. And then at the end had to come to an understanding that, no, he's right, and he did do what he needed to do. And I loved just the reality of the two of them having this sense of closure to everything that's come before, which I thought was great. And it was something that I thought was pivotal in the issue, because you needed to close that up if we're going to have a new creative team coming on and taking JSA in a new direction. And that was something that I really appreciated because I think too often we don't get this. And it is something that I've mentioned on the show quite recently as something that I've been enjoying as a strength in this past year, especially in the latter part of the year, of how they've been handing off books to other creative teams, is closure. Giving us something, whichever run is your favorite out of the two, whether you liked the previous run, you're liking the new run, doesn't matter. If you like both of them equally, you're at least getting this sense that there's a story that's come to a conclusion. And we are moving on. And there's room for the creative team to acknowledge those events, that the new creative team, without having to feel like they're stuck to them, if that makes sense. And it was something that I thought was a strength. In the new creative team with JSA now, we've got this new thing going on with Mr. Terrific, which is interesting to me because I'm reading it right now as Mr. Terrific's the leader of the team. I don't know if you're reading it that way, Jim. Are you still taking it that Terrific's still running the show?
Yeah. Definitely took it that Terrific was the chairman, and with what's going on with him, that is a huge blow to the team, and that's something that you talked about, this transition, the passing of the torch kind of stuff, to open with that kind of sequence, with that revelation, was huge for me. I was like, oh man, he's coming out, and he's coming out swinging. I loved just that whole kind of like Star Trek Spock feel, where he was getting fired off questions, and he was answering them, and they're judging based on how fast and whatnot he was responding to it. I thought that was a cool kind of way to show Terrific's intelligence.
And that's one of the things that Terrific's losing his intelligence. We haven't really talked about what his event is, but he's losing his intelligence right now. And he's realizing that the degradation is occurring at a certain rate and that he doesn't have much time to deal with this. And he's also keeping it secret, which is a huge I'm assuming is going to be a huge problem for the team, because I have a feeling they're going to find out the hard way at a time where they really need him to be on top of the game. And I love elements like that because there's a humanity, because this identity of Mr. Terrific is who he is. There is nothing else for him. He's revolved his life around that.
Now, here's the way I read this. He's not only losing his super intelligence, he's going to be, below par, is how I kind of took it. That within 11 months, he's going to be below average even.
And that's a huge blow for him, because I do feel that this JSA identity, this Mr. Terrific, with where he's at right now, that's who he is. That's everything. He doesn't have a relationship to speak of outside of it. Currently, we don't see a lot of that, so that was something that, to me, I found incredibly interesting about this storyline. We've also got, in the meantime, Alan Scott's kind of got a new lease on life. He's become this adventurer again. In the wake of everything that's happened, he has really embraced the life of a hero again. It was great to see that opening with him and Jay, where Jay's announcing, that he's going to be retiring, and he's going to be this, now we see that he's going to be the mayor of Monument Point. But Jay retiring is something that's pretty huge in all of this. And Alan's reaction to it of saying, you can't do that, buddy. They've been together for so long. And I connected with this because I think of my own friendships. And, be like you saying, hey, dude, like, we're hanging this up.
Right.
I'm like, but I mean, not even just forget about the podcast, you saying, hey, dude, I'm moving to, Argentina or, somewhere like that, where we're going to be, vast differences. It's a change of life for Alan Scott, because he and Jay have been together for the longest time in a way that, it was just something that I deeply connected with, Alan's reaction to it, saying, you can't really give this up. And I like Jay coming back and saying, well, I didn't say I was retiring now. But I'm implying that I'm going to. And it is with these heroes, with how old they are, and with Barry Allen returning, and the fact that there's a lot of flashes running around right now. For Jay to be entertaining that thought would make sense at this time. You've got Jesse Quick on the JLA. You've got Barry running around. You've got Wally running around. You've got Bart running around on the Teen Titans. There's a lot of speedsters in the DC universe right now. Is he still needed? And is this arc going to be about him discovering that he is, and that he has a role that he doesn't realize? What does it mean being mayor of Monument Point? Where is this society heading now with the JSA? And I'm very intrigued to see where we go from here with the team, and how Wildcat's going to feel about all this.
See, here's the thing. Now, his Jay's identity is public, correct?
My understanding is that it is. I think. I'll be 100% honest with you. This is sometimes where I get a little confused. Is over time. Well, obviously he doesn't His face isn't covered up by a mask or anything.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm guessing it is.
Because I want to see why he became the mayor, whether they elected the Flash, whether they elected him, whether they elected a member of the JSA. I want to see that whole process, find out what the debate was, what the logic was. Now,
well, he was told that in his Flash costume, too.
Right. So they called the Flash there. That's what I'm like, did they, do they want...
What the interesting thing I like about Jay Garrick, and I'm assuming that the answer is that his identity is public. I think one of the advantages of seeing that is we don't have to talk about them like they're separate entities. Jay Garrick is the Flash, and the Flash is Jay Garrick in his case. Whereas with other heroes, like for are they electing Superman or are they electing Clark Kent? That's a huge difference because it's who do the people see him as at those moments. With Jay, realistically, if there is no secret identity, there's no separation between the man and the powers. What the people see is who he is.
And I'm going to, again, just throw myself under the bus. On that very first page within that stuff where he's talking to the guy, he calls him Mr. Garrick, so his identity is public.
Right, of course.
Duh.
Well, no, I wasn't. I guess what I was saying was, though, the person that was telling him that, I guess, was he in the know, was my question. I was rolling with you on that one as far as saying I'm not 100% sure if it's general knowledge to everybody or just people close to him or what, but agreeing with you on the throwing yourself under the bus thing. I've always assumed Jay's knowledge was, that his secret identity was public knowledge, but I clearly wasn't 100% sure either. I guess with his costume, one would assume that his identity is public. Probably the worst identity hiding costume in history. I love his costume, though. I love the whole hat. Here's the only
thing, though. If he's constantly moving, constantly doing that little facial vibration thing, he could never have a normal person could never have a clear look at his face. So he can actually hide his face pretty well.
We've seen so many pictures, though, iconic pictures that have been quote-unquote snapshots of the JSA, where I'm assuming some of those are public knowledge with his face. Yeah. On there. So I guess I was always assuming that his identity was public. The interesting part, Alan Scott is his. I don't remember. Maybe some of our listeners, anybody out there, who in the JSA, at least currently, do we assume has public knowledge of their identity? Besides Jay, because you're right, Jay, I think we can assume from the first part of the issue, and it's kind of a dumb moment for both of us. It was right there on the first page. Hey, I'm with you. I'm not throwing you under the bus here. I'm with you. I was totally rolling with trying to figure it out, and it was right there on the front page. I like this as a first issue kickoff for the new team, though, because I was liking what was going on before, and I was worried, with switching of creative teams with JSA, I think that's been one of the problems. They've all got this Death Star of Jeff Johns looming over them. So it's really hard to take over for Jeff Johns because he had such a long run and such an identifiable, iconic run on JSA that you're instantly going to be compared to that. So I'm going to be interested to see where they go with this. I'm glad to see that it looks like Jakeem Thunder's coming back, because that's a character I've been longing to see back in the JSA. So I'm glad to see that character's back around. I'm glad Lightning looks like still going to be on the team.
Yeah, she's throwing down pretty well. So I'm glad this is kind of a nice blending of old and new, bringing back Jakeem and all that. And so I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes with this team, especially with some of the dramatic changes we have happen.
I'm hoping Mr. America sticks around. Well, I'm guessing because they're talking about this being the book that explores the concept of a society with Monument Point. So I'm assuming that there's going to be a whole shebang of people in this book.
Yeah.
With a core team, but a whole shebang of people, going back to that concept again. So I'm curious to see how that turns out and what it looks like. But so far, it was a good kickoff issue. The terrific thing is my focal point right now. I'm finding that personally the most interesting. What does this mean for the team, and how are they going to find out? Usually you don't find that out the easy way. You don't find that out over a cup of coffee at Starbucks. It's going to be in the middle of a battle.
well, we kind of see him at periods in this big fight when they're dealing with the the super terrorist, whoever this unknown is, he has a couple moments where you can see him stumbling and not knowing exactly what the next thing to do. Whereas before, he always had that strong confidence, this, go, 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 go kind of stuff. There was, you could see there was an emotional strain on him, but also I kind of took it as maybe a mental strain where he's like, I don't know what to do. It could be a whole confidence thing, but there could be already seen factors of the intelligence decreasing.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. So and I like that it's a gradual build. I think this is a storyline that's going to build gradually with him. And what does this mean for the team? Does this mean that ultimately somebody's going to take over for him as the chairman? Who would you put, if not Mr. Terrific, who would you put as the chairman?
Well, my first reaction would be, I don't know. I'd go Alan Scott would be the first thing, but seeing how the issue ends, I don't know if he's the right choice. So then I'd go Jay Garrick. And as much as I like Wildcat, I don't think he's a good leader type. He's the fighter. He's the throwdown. Now, I'm not saying he couldn't do the job. He could, but everybody has strengths of their character. I think Wildcat's strength of character is in the field, he's the motivator, he's the guy who, when you need that, that bomb, just that, Hail Mary pass, he's the guy that delivers it. Because you saw that in the fight here. Right when they're getting their knocked out of them, he drives a Mack truck into this villain.
Did you say when they're getting their wait? Did you say when they're getting their knocked out of them?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Well, I didn't want to say. I almost slipped and said, knocked out of them. But then I caught myself, and so as I was caught myself, I was stumbling.
You couldn't have said getting the snot knocked out of them? Well,
yeah, I could have, but
All right.
But hey, come on, cut me some slack here. Okay. All right. Do you have to hear everything I say?
Well, would you want me to not pay attention to you?
Well, I don't know. Sometimes, that could
I find you fascinating. Why do you think we've done so many shows together? They're not knocked out of them. JSA is very interesting to me right now, though, and I'm glad to see with the new creative team that there was a passing of the torch. I think that's something that I think that really needs to be a template. Whether the storyline's selling or not, and I'm not talking about sales numbers or anything in this, but I'm saying for any book, whether the storyline's selling or not, you got to give us closure as readers, because there is a readership on any title that has been sticking around, and they've been enjoying a book, and they want closure. I want to know how the storyline ends before you put me in a new one. And that leads me to Teen Titans, a great example. Felicia Henderson has been doing a storyline right now involving the Wild and this idea that Raven has a son of sorts that has come from her own turmoil, and it's opened up this opportunity for this creature to be created in this other world. And they really did a great job of putting closure on that whole storyline, showing why certain members are not currently on the team as we go into issue 88, where we see the new creative team take on. It was a great sense of, hey, we're going to wrap up this storyline. We're going to wrap up the Coven of Three storyline in the back of the book. So that way there's a complete clean slate to start up in 88. But I actually, and this is one of the areas where I want to give compliment and put Static in the place that he needs to be in, with Megan heading out to Cadmus, and where obviously Felicia Henderson is going to take over and do the Static series. So it put everything in kind of a nice spot with these characters and, of course, Cyborg and where everything was going. So then we head into Teen Titans 88 with the brand new creative team. Anytime you've got Nicholas Scott, Doug Hazelwood, and, my colorist Jason Wright on this book, I'm going to be a happy camper, because I loved this artistic team on Secret Six. So to see that group back together again, it was really fabulous for me. Then you add in J.T. Cruel. You add into this. And one of the things that I loved, there were references, it wasn't a huge part of it, but there were references to, especially when Raven was brought in, to what had happened previously. I love when a creative team says, we don't have to totally ignore what was going on before. We've done our homework. These are things that just happened to Raven. Of course they would still be affecting her. And her emotional state when it comes to Gar Logan, we see that she had a relationship with Beast Boy, and that did mean something to her. And she's well aware that by staying with this team and having feelings for him, this puts her in danger. But yet, she can't walk away from him either. And his feelings have changed because of recent events, but that's something that bothers her. And I loved that reality. We don't get to see that too much from Raven. And when we do see it, I think it's very cool to see how difficult it is to be Raven. Imagine being this person who, when you learn what love is, when you feel these emotions, and honestly, it could be argued that Raven feels these emotions in a way that none of us could ever fathom, because they're so dangerous from her, they could send her on the Trigon path. I loved those moments. I thought that was really cleverly done. It gave us a real insight into what Raven's state of mind is right now, and honestly gave me more respect for the strength of Raven, and how the balance that she has to try and keep in her life in order to maintain control, which I thought was very cool.
I tell you, I got to echo just the sentiments about the art team on Titans. I was just so in love with with the visual story, but also just that beautiful meshing of writing and art style. And I got to say how much I loved the Beast Boy. I thought just the various couple different panels. You see, he's got this kind of I want to say it's kind of like a puppy dog face sort of thing, but it's not. I'm not saying he's got the big floppy ears or anything like that. It reminded me just of the animal nature of Beast Boy, and I thought it was just really cool moments. It wasn't in every single panel, but it was like those down times, kind of when you could see it's like the man not in the mask. Where he's just okay, just kind of relaxing a little bit. I thought that was just some great, just usage of, the art to tell a story, the art to tell the emotions. I was like eating some of this stuff up, man.
One of the things I really love about a consistent art team on a book, which is something we're seeing a lot in a lot of the DC books right now, is that you get a chance for them to build a style. A storytelling style, a visual style. And it's something I'm really enjoying in a lot of the DC books that are coming out right now. And this was a great way to kick off a new style for Titans and the way that it's going. While going back to the beginning, I loved Barney, this whole bit with Barney and seeing where... I didn't know who was... I was thinking, and I don't know if you felt the same way, that Barney was going to be the villain. Yeah. And I had no idea, because I think he was a teenager and all that. And I do have a funny feeling that I don't know, do you think Barney's dead? Or might we be seeing somehow more of Barney because of Dr. Callaghan and what he's done to Barney?
I'm thinking Barney's mutated, and we're going to see Barney again, but he's not going to be the same kid he was. We're definitely going to see the monster Barney.
One of the things, the monster Barney.
I love
yeah, I was thinking
anymore.
It's scary sometimes when we start thinking alike. It just means, the Wonder Girl was really interesting to me in this. I've liked the evolution of her in her leadership, her decision making, because I think this has been a problem on Titans. She's sitting here saying, right now, the kind of battles that we're fighting, we need an experienced team. I was glad to see they didn't drop the whole Aqua Girl, bombshell thing, that the team did rescue her. Yeah, granted, it's off camera, but I really appreciate that was a dangling thread from the previous run, and they didn't just ignore it. And that, sometimes a quick reference is all I need, but I really give them credit for not ignoring what just happened there, and that's something that was, a home run for this team for doing that. But Wonder Girl, faced with a lot of decisions, she is in love with Superboy, to the point where we've seen her in the issues leading up to all this, talking about, their future together and things like that, but yet having to sit there and say, I worry about you constantly on the field because you died. What does this do to me as a leader? And can this relationship continue the way it is, or is it only going to make me a liability? And I think that's something where I think she could find a balance. I think she could make it work. But I really give her credit as a leader for sitting there and saying, I need to analyze this and evaluate myself, because lives are on the line every time I give an order. And if I am not giving you 110% out there on the field, somebody could wind up dead. And we need to be experienced enough. We need to be out there. So I'm going to be curious to see what this means for her and him, and if they can find a happy medium. I'm always rooting for them. And my honest hope is that the two of them do find a way to make their relationship work in the middle of all this. But I like that it's an honest reason for the two of them to be having a little bit of difficulty right now. And that's something that I thought was a very interesting reason, other than it just being another girl. I think this is going to lead to those types of problems where, okay, you're telling me to move on, I'm moving on, and now you don't like it. That opens up those doors and those opportunities. But I like the reasoning for it. Other than, Connor's messing around or something like that. He's living the life. It was a very genuine reason to throw a little wrench into the work of their relationship.
I also took it as in Connor's series, this is going to open it up for him to explore stuff in Smallville. So I kind of like that's how I took this whole Mean to Be, to give him that opportunity. And again, that was something I really like to see, that we have two different series, that the one series is setting up activity in the other one. So I thought that's another nice overall DC Universe type of connection and working together.
Ravager's always interesting. Because she's a constant storm moving throughout the series. And they really nailed that with her, because I've always liked the character on Titans. And seeing her back again, and the reasoning, because she is a trained combatant. She is going to bring experience to the table. Yes, she's a wild card, and yes, that's something that Wonder Girl's going to have to deal with. But her reasoning for bringing her back and wanting her there was something that made perfect sense, and I really liked that aspect of it. I'm glad that she's back in the book, because Rose brings something interesting to the table, and I liked Rose's reasons for being there. It's, hey, look at what I've look what I've been going through. Look at the deal with my dad. Look at the deal with my mom. I need to get to the bottom of who I am and how I play into all this. And I think we're going to see a much more, at the end of this, a much more well-rounded Rose. Let's talk about the team. At least on paper right now, it looks like the team, just from the cover, is going to be Superboy, Wonder Girl, Raven, Ravager, Beast Boy, and Kid Flash, along with Damian. What do you think about that lineup?
Dude, I'm digging it. I like this lineup. I was thinking, there's a couple other characters I would like to see in there. I would have liked to seen Jaime in the team, because I think he's a cool character and I want to have more stuff with him in it. But just what they got here, they got a nice, solid Titans lineup. Even if Damian doesn't stick around for a long time, just a couple cool stories with him. I'd like to see him stick around. Let me just throw that out there just so there's no doubt. I would like to see him part of this, because one, just it'll add a little bit, kind of that, that lit match into a can of gasoline type of action. Because Damian is an interesting person, and I think that a creative writer could really do a lot with him, especially on the team dynamics we already have here. So I'm really looking forward to this. This is something that I'm really excited about, Titans. I was, anticipating. I was going, this is going to be kind of cool. I was looking forward. I read this issue. I had that same kind of rush that I had when I first got into Titans back in the Johns era. I had that same kind of, oh, this is good. Oh yeah, there's going to be some stuff here. There's going to be some stuff here. You're seeing just the inner dynamics, the inner workings of these different people, and there's going to be something that's going to come out of this. It's not just the throwaway, and I hope for a very long, long run with this team, because I want to see them have fun with it and just flesh it out and just knock my socks off.
Yeah, because Titans has been one of those books I've been enjoying, but I haven't been loving.
Right.
And, enjoying means I wasn't, dropping it or anything, but it hasn't been one of those, Titans for me for ages has been, a top-of-the-stack read when it comes out, and then all of a sudden it just wasn't in that place. And it's a book that kind of lost its way. And I think for a lot of reasons that weren't the fault of the creative teams, I think, the characters were, killed off and then pulled apart. And then, this team was constantly in turmoil. And I think it was a huge problem. And I think a lot of what Wonder Girl was saying, hey, we need a team that's, ready to go. I think a lot of her comments kind of fit the comments of readership. This is what we want from the Teen Titans. We want this team to feel like, you're this team that's ready to handle big, epic villains and big epic adventures, and I'm looking forward to that. It looks like we're going to be getting at least appearances, if not a joining, from the new Aqualad on this team, which I'm excited to see, because I'm liking that character. I know they said that they have a new character that they've been saying at the cons that they're going to be bringing to the book, so I'm very curious to see who that new character is. I don't know if it's Barney, but we're definitely going to be seeing a new character. Do you think the bite that Beast Boy suffered is going to affect him at all?
See, that's what I was wondering, because you think about it. If he's genetically altering, if these are genetic mutant type feral kids, is it contagious? Do we got the zombie syndrome going to happen? I don't know. That was the first thing I thought of when I saw him bite him. And I was like, oh my God, did they just infect Beast Boy? And then there's really nothing beyond that, so who knows? That could be another one of those things where they throw it out there and then it hits you later on. Even it could make, they could wait a couple issues before that thing pops up. You never know what's going to happen. I thought that's like, yeah, this is definitely a possibility.
Word is you need a Robin to lead this flock. Well, here I am. I'm telling you, there's no way that kid's not going to be on the team.
Yeah.
Too much fun to have with him. But I'm Titans happy. I'm really glad this book kind of kicked off. Not kind of, it definitely kicked off the way that I was hoping with a new creative team. I had a lot of faith in the writing of J.T. Cruel from his previous dealings with Titans during Blackest Night. So I was glad to see that this was the writer they chose to take over this book, because definite understanding of what was great. I always refer back to, and everyone does. You refer back to the Johns run. I always refer back to Wolfman and Perez.
Yeah.
And then, which honestly, I think the Johns run is very reminiscent of that. And it was something that I really enjoyed. So I was glad to see this kind of feel coming back into the book, kicking out of the starting gate. And I'm glad it's a book that's gone, at least in the first issue out, from being enjoyable to me to being an issue where I was like, wow, I really loved this. And we've got a big book that we want to talk about in a couple minutes. But I didn't want to go a week without discussing this book, which says a lot.
I gotta just say, just the stuff with Bart. He was in the future,
Yes.
He went to the library, and he started reading the library, and now he's slowly forgetting it. So what's he doing? He's writing everything down. He's jotting everything down so it's not lost information. I loved seeing him do that, and I love the sketch in the back where we got the time bubble, right there. I was like, oh my God, this is kind of cool. So that was something else I really dig seeing.
I like that concept, too, of it was a temporal issue because of the fact that this happened in the future.
Mm-hmm.
That was something that was becoming a problem for him. That he went to the future and read those books. And this isn't something for current books that he was reading when we've seen him doing speed reading. That's kind of matured him that we've seen all along. This is an issue only with stuff from the future.
Right.
That's why he's writing those things down. I like that. That was kind of an interesting... And I wonder if this is going to play into, in some way, missions for the Titans in the future, where they're going to have bits and pieces of knowledge from Bart that are going to pay off in some way. Will the Titans play into Flashpoint somehow because Bart knows information from the future? I don't know. I'm totally diving on that one. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I thought it was cool, regardless.
One thing I gotta throw out there that we didn't really comment on Justice Society, the art team, just how beautiful this book was.
Yeah.
When we were talking about Titans, how great Titan was, I'm like, you know what? We didn't say anything about Justice Society, and I just gotta say how much I enjoyed just this art style here. And I thought this was a really just beautiful book, and I was like, man, starting off with a heavy-hitting story with some really cool-looking. So I was like, oh, this is a great way to start off. Both books had that beautiful meshing of art and story, really hit you with a wow right out the gate. So I was like, ah.
I always get sad when an art team leaves a book. But then I understand exactly why you would put a new art team on a book to kick off a brand new feeling, a new style, a new presence for the book. Because you're really trying to give readership a reinvigoration, a new sense of excitement, a sense of new to the book. So I get it. And I agree with you, because I was enjoying what was going on in JSA before. And this totally gave me a sense of a new feeling, a new era, a new movement. And I was glad to see that. That was something I got when the new era kicked off when Bill Willingham took over. And I really enjoyed how that was going because it gave me a new sense of feeling on it. So I was glad to see that I got that same kind of excitement and energy in that one as well. So you're right. Great comments on talking about that art team as well. Do you like it when new art teams come on with a brand new series or a brand new writer? Do you like when the art team kind of matches that the writers come on as well?
Here's the thing. Before this, I would have said no. I kind of like some consistency, but seeing how they used it with both of these books, I'm very, very happy they did this. So I think it's got to be a game day decision kind of thing for me, where I'm not going to have a set. I'm not going to have a set thing anymore. in the past, before these issues really rolled out, I would have told you I kind of like some consistency in the story going on. Here I'm going to say no. I like a nice sweeping change, something bam right out the gate, something a little bit different, but it still is a connection to what we saw before. So I was like, this was just a great blending of it.
Well, I'll give you a great example of it. Wonder Woman was one that I loved the writer. I loved the art team. I really loved what was going on in that book, style-wise. I'm really enjoying what's going on with the new creative team. That was a very tough sell for me, though, because of how much I loved Wonder Woman. Supergirl coming up, huge change for me, because I really think the creative team that's been working on Supergirl right now, Jamal Igle and Sterling Gates, and the colorists and everything they've been doing there, that book has just been stellar. I think it's put Kara to new levels of just interesting, and it's matured her and made her likable. Which is she's a character who was, I think, hard to like previously, which was, I actually really have liked her journey because of that. She's slowly evolved in this character that was really enjoyable. And a character who feels like a superhero.
Yeah. I'm a little worried about Supergirl. I've
too.
so enjoyed it. I've so enjoyed everything, just visually and story, and I'm worried. I'm a little bit nervous. I want to see what's going to happen. I'm not going to condemn anything until I actually get a good story arc under the new team, get a good vibe of it. But that is a team I'm worried about. And just like with Wonder Woman, I'm enjoying it, but I'm not loving it. I loved what Gail did. I loved what I saw, visually. I loved the story. I'm enjoying what I'm currently getting, but I got to just wait and see how this current Wonder Woman connects to the universe. Once I get that story, once I get that part of the piece, that's when we'll see if it's still an enjoy or a love. And that's right now the big hump for me on Wonder Woman.
The most recent issue of Wonder Woman, I'm going to say I'm starting to get really into this. I've got to see how it connects to the DC universe. And I've got to see, because if it throws everything out the window, which I guess this issue gave me the vibe that that's not what's going to happen with the whole lasso and her flying and things like that. Yeah. I'm slowly starting to see her connecting more and more with who she is. That's going to be a big selling factor for me, because you're taking a character who I've become very attached to in this run, and there's a possibility that she's not going to be the same person. I'm seeing more and more connections, though, to that person that I know and love. So that's really going to be, that's honestly the pivotal selling point to me on it. I don't know, and it's very hard for me to compare it to the previous run, because in the previous run, we were really clear to what was going on, just in the sense that it was really about giving us who Diana is at her core and showing us new things about her. So it was all like, really, we were getting attached to Wonder Woman, her relationships with people and the world around her and where it was all going. I loved that. I think more I'm tentative on this run is I don't know what's going on. And I think that's where it is. I don't want to say that it's very hard to compare it to a run where I did. And I think we're not supposed to know right now. I'm enjoying the mystery. Like, as far as I don't have any urge to drop Wonder Woman, I'm really digging that aspect of it. I like the mystery. I'm with you in the sense that I'm very tentative on, am I going to like what they're doing with her? At the end of this issue, I'm going to say that whole bit where she was flying for the first time in this version, and her sense of joy at flying. And, how they were saying, we're not saying that you can fly, we're saying you used to fly, and then she's all of a sudden able to do it. They were saying when all your powers come back, you will be able to again. And kind of seeing this moment where that was happening again, in that moment, I had this sense, there's Wonder Woman. And it was one of the first times in this run that I had that sense of, there's Wonder Woman. So that was, for me, I'm going to say the most recent issue, really, I'm like, fine, yes, there's Wonder Woman. And I'm hoping to see more of that as the build. So it's a story that I feel is building for me. I don't know if you got that same attachment at the end, and if you didn't, there's no big deal. And I think for your comments, maybe you aren't in the same place I'm at with it. But at the end of that issue, I'm like, all right, there's Wonder Woman. I needed that.
Yeah, I'm not at the same place you are, but right. I'm solidly enjoying the story I'm reading. I think it's a good story. I'm enjoying what, the physical, the imagery, the artwork. I'm thinking I'm like, yeah, this looks cool. I like where the story is, and I can't say that getting it. I can't say that, yeah, there's Wonder Woman, because I do need. I'm still holding on to. I need that connection. I need to know what happens. I'm pretty confident when everything is said and done, because I trust in the creative team that when it's all over, when this first arc's finished, I'm gonna say, okay, yeah. This is my Wonder Woman. This is a cool Wonder Woman. I think we're going to get to that point, but right now, I can't say that.
And I need that. I need that too. And I really felt at the end of the issue, I started seeing the signs pointing to that. I think it's kind of the same anticipation. I think we're in different places, like the way when we've had various discussions on JLA. Mm-hmm. I think what I'm excited about is the anticipation of building towards that, and I saw the first signs of that. At least for me, at the end of this issue. Mm-hmm. So I'm making a lot of assumptions based on where the end of this issue was, on where this is going. And I think the assumptions are what's getting me excited and where I'm making connections. Whereas JLA is actually a great comparison on this. I had assumptions on where I thought the team was heading, and I thought with issue 50 we finally started to see that. And I'm hoping that we get the same thing out of Wonder Woman that I've been feeling with JLA. If that makes any sense.
Oh, definitely makes sense. And to be honest with you, I can see what you're saying, and even agree with you a little bit that, I can see Wonder Woman heading in that direction. For some reason, it's just, I don't know, I can't, 100% commit to a love on the title yet. I'm pretty confident that, in a couple issues I'll be saying, oh, I'm really loving this, but right now it's an enjoy. It's a good read. It's an entertaining read. It's all positive stuff. It is one of those, I do read it on Thursday. The only time I wouldn't read it on Thursday is if I got a lot of, like, with the Batman stuff coming out, and a lot of just, I got to see this, or if it's up against the Gale, like, I got to go with that, so it could get bumped to a Friday, but it is a solid Thursday, Friday read for me, so it's definitely an enjoyable thing, so yeah.
I want to talk about, talking about Batman, if we could quickly talk about the road home. Okay. We had Oracle and Ra's al Ghul. These two one-shots, or Ra's al Ghul, depending on how you want to pronounce it, one-shots. And we got to see, in the Oracle one, it was really great because we got to see this insider, which is Bruce, interacting more with Vicky Vale, interacting more with Barbara. And I liked the fact that this story showed us even more what Bruce brought to the table for Barbara with the whole Killing Joke thing. How it really was, if he hadn't visited her in the hospital, if he hadn't have been Bruce when he visited her in the hospital, and her respect levels for him, how she might not be who she is. And sometimes how pivotal moments, people making time for you and taking those moments. And I really loved this issue. It's Mark Andreyko. And I got to be honest with you, Mark Andreyko with one-shots is just, to me, like, I really love what he brings to the table. One of my favorite one-shots of all time from Mark Andreyko was still that Ma Kent one from Superman Returns that he did. I thought was just so brilliant. And this is another great example of it because he's very good at these character-driven pieces. And this one, it just so totally fits that. He understands Oracle. This is very much the Oracle that we're seeing in Birds of Prey and seen throughout her history. And I really loved this aspect of her and just how much respect Bruce has and that she can surprise Bruce. Because I believe at this point in time, Oracle has stepped up her game so much that she's operating in a very different way than being under the shadow of the Bat. She's a direct ally of the Bat. And I think there's a huge distinction there. And I think Bruce... And I think his respect level of these allies is something we're seeing in these one-shots where Bruce is looking at everybody with a new, fresh pair of eyes and seeing how far they've come in his absence and what they've brought to the table, how they've evolved. And Oracle, this one for me was just a great example. We saw it with his view of Dick Grayson. We're seeing it now with his view of Oracle. And this was such a good moment for me. And especially when she's breaking into his frequency. How did you get into this?
Yeah. Just Oracle. She can do it all. And yeah, definitely loved seeing just that, once again, I love the character Oracle. I love Barbara as Oracle. Whenever anybody talks about, having her walk again and all that, I always say the same thing. I don't want to lose Oracle. I don't want to lose this character because she is just this great, not only just intelligence gathering but a great character, a great person. And I don't want to lose that. And I love seeing that Bruce is recognizing just what she brings to the table. And I thought it was a cool moments where Bruce was, put, so much trust in her to get the birds in, to find the right people for the team. She knew what they were going up against. They're going up against Ra's al Ghul's, premium guard, his maid, his right-hand assassin kind of deal. And he's like, hey, get your operatives on this kind of deal. He basically left that part to her, knowing she would be able to assemble something that could keep this together. She would be able to keep the things going and keep people alive. I thought that, for me, seeing Bruce Wayne completely trust her with stuff like this is a huge, huge thing. And that was just, it's that whole mad respect, towards her that I really, really dig seeing from Bruce, Insider, Batman, whatever name he goes by. He's still that same iconic image that everybody wants, to not only be friends with, but to earn his respect, and she's earned it. I love seeing that throughout this this one shot.
Do you think the wheelchair defines Oracle anymore?
No.
I think it's one of the things that I find inspirational about the character is I really don't feel that wheelchair defines her. And I think that's something where I think when you see anybody in a wheelchair, it's one of the strengths of Oracle is you can kind of use this character to sit there and say, don't let the chair define the person. See the person for who they are, if that makes sense. So I don't know at this point, should Oracle walk again, should Oracle not? I don't know that it matters anymore, other than I agree with everything you said in the sense that we can't lose Oracle in there. I think she's evolved so much as a character. I don't know that her walking again or not would make a difference on who she is as a character at the core, because I think she's so well defined. I don't know. I'd be curious to see if there's a need or a purpose for her walking again. I think a right writer could do that and convince me that there is a reason for her to walk again. I don't know that I'm not like sitting here right now saying to myself, geez, there's been times where I've been like, boy, it'd be great to see her walk again and her fighting alongside Dick Grayson. And, to see them out on the street fighting together. But with him having Damian as his Robin, I don't know that I necessarily need to see that. I don't know. It's interesting to me. We've got a Batgirl. We don't need her back in that role. We've got a Batwoman, so we don't really need that. I'd be curious to see what would be the reason for her, unless we're having her as a field operative for the birds. And I don't know that we need that.
Yeah.
I would be very curious to see if there was a reason to have her walk again or not, and why. But she's a character who is, to me, one that I have strong feelings about at her core who she is. And I think this issue showed at her core who she is, and it has nothing to do with the chair. It has to do with who mentally she is and how she's overcome adversity. And I think that is something that will stand whether she walks or not again. And I think that's been something that's been great about her story. And I do like the idea, though, that when I look at this character, I don't see a character in a chair anymore. I see her, in many ways, just as powerful, if not more powerful, than many of the characters who can walk in the DC universe. Oh, yeah. She's downright scary at times, in a good way. And I love that about Oracle. There is a power. Knowledge
is power, man. And she's a character that the only reason why I would want to see her walk again is just because, I look at her like a friend, and yeah, she's able to overcome this, but I'm sure she probably would enjoy just taking a nice casual walk through a field, or just a simple things that we take for granted because we are able to do that. I think she would like to do that again, and that's the only reason why I would want to see her walk again, just as how I'd want any of my friends to, not be in pain or not have any, disabilities or have anything, go against them like that. It's, for story-wise, for character, she's Oracle. Whether she's in a chair, whether she's able to walk, whether she's, even doing a remote field operation, she is still that cool person who, gets the job done, who knows what needs to do, and you see her go a lot of times in great Birds of Prey stories, in this story, you see her go that one little step beyond what you thought she would be able to do. Like, oh, wow, cool. Oh, yeah, that kind of stuff. It's, that's the strength of this character, is that she is not defined by limitations. She's defined by who she is. It's not, she doesn't let the outside world say, hey, you can't do this. She says, this is what I can do. This is what I'm going to do. So whether she has uses of walking or not, she's always going to have that. So she'll always take it one step beyond what you and I think she'll be able to do. And I think that is the strength of who and what is Oracle.
The Ra's al Ghul one-shot we should talk about as well. I love his whole reasoning for going after Vicky Vale.
Yeah.
This is an affront to him. Nobody else can take down or destroy the detective completely, destroy his world completely, but Ra's al Ghul. And this girl becoming so close to doing just that, to taking him down, to taking down Batman's empire, was an affront that he would not let happen. It really is something he's looking back to his own history and were the adversaries that have stood toe-to-toe, and it bugs him that he can't remember the name of one of them.
Yeah.
And he's looking back and saying, what was his name? I need to remember that. Why can't I remember that? And analyzing himself and what that means about him that he can't anymore. And what is it important for him to remember about these adversaries as they're going through. And this journey that Ra's goes on actually leads to the end game with him. We're facing off with Bruce. He ends up backing off and letting Bruce handle this situation because of that. And it was interesting to see the respect of two adversaries that these two are going to be locked in battle forever until one of them's done for. And it was something that I really liked about that moment, because it felt very much like the same Ra's al Ghul that I remember way back when he was introduced. And there was something I've always liked about the character and how you can recapture that. I also liked these one-shots. They had different creative teams as they were going along, but it all served to the purpose of not only showing us what Bruce Wayne was doing before we actually see him revealed again, but it also serves as a great way to tie up the loose ends of this Vicky Vale thread that's been going on. Because I'm assuming just from the way that this is tied up in here, that thread was not going to be dealt with in the Bat books if they didn't deal with it here. And it was a thread I was greatly enjoying. So I'm glad to see that it is something where it's coming to a head right now, and Bruce has a chance to come back and deal with it.
Yeah.
In a way that it wasn't about one-upping Vicky Vale. It was about Vicky Vale understanding just the sheer amount of responsibility that Bruce has as Batman, and how important Batman is to the world, which is something that I think Batman's realizing even more so. He's not just important to Gotham. He needs to have more of a worldview now. And I think with what's going on with Dick Grayson being so effective at Gotham, he's seeing, now I have a chance to take a worldview. My allies have offered me this opportunity. So now I can take advantage of it and operate in a way that I didn't ever think that I could. Because I believe now that there's a reason for it. Well, what do you want on with Darkseid? It's Batman needs to take a larger look at the bigger picture of everything. I can't just be about Gotham. I need to be a symbol of something more. And I really like this concept. That really is where this is going, but that's what I feel that we're getting out of this. And it's a very cool lead-in to Batman Incorporated. You don't have to. I really don't feel you had to have read this to go into it. Because I believe Morrison's going to give you everything that you want to know in Batman Incorporated. But I greatly enjoyed this ride of tying up some loose threads that have been going on in the books and giving us kind of a great ride with Bruce analyzing each of his opponents and each of his team in this story. And just seeing what lengths he'll go to protect somebody's life.
And I love seeing just how Ra's just led Bruce throughout all this.
Yeah.
When I kind of read this, I kind of took it as, at the end there where, Ra's let Bruce deal with Vicky. That was his plan from the beginning. I don't think he was really planning on killing her. He wanted to lead her to the point, wanted to get to that final confrontation where it's him, Bruce, and Vicky all in the same room, basically wanting Bruce to kind of let go of some of his masks. I think, in the back of his head, or maybe in the forefront of his planning, we may see him, Ra's try to use Bruce again as part of like his, heir, his successor kind of deal.
I'm going to be curious to see if that Red Robin as a potential successor, or, as the potential route to creating an heir, as a throwaway, or if we're going to see more of that. Because Fabian Nicieza is writing that as well. So I'd be curious to see, where he takes Ra's al Ghul from here, if we're going to see more of, or if because Bruce is back, if, like you said, Ra's focus is going to turn back to Bruce. I don't know. And how's he going to feel about Dick Grayson? It opens up a whole big can of worms there. I don't know. See, I see some of what you're saying as a possibility, but it was interesting to see, too, that, did Ra's think Bruce would be able to make it there? Did Ra's think that he was one step ahead of the detective and is constantly surprised by the prowess of his adversary? And I think it was a sense of respect that his adversary did solve the puzzles to make it to him, to protect her, and was willing to drop his mask in front of her to handle it himself. I don't know. It was interesting to me to see those moments and if Ra's really knew that he was coming or not. At that point, I think part of him assumed that there was a possibility Bruce would make it there. I'm not entirely convinced that he was sure that Bruce would make it there, though. I think that's something about Bruce that he respects, is that when he thinks he's got the master plan and he's in control of the situation, Bruce will show up at times where he doesn't always 100% respect it to happen. So I don't know. I see it your way too. So it's not so much as a disputing you as I think it's interesting about the storyline is you can go back and reread that issue, and depending if you're following along with Bruce or with Ra's, I think you can read it in two very different ways. Because Bruce actually does discover at one point in time where he's like, I have this moment here where this is where he is. He's actually at the hotel. And I don't know if that was a Ra's clue or if it was just Bruce being the smart detective that he is.
Yeah, I don't know. It's funny. I could, with anything, especially with the way the story is, I can take either way, and I'd be happy with either way just because, again, this was just a beautifully played out, between the two of them. I still really dig this scene where, Bruce is sitting there, he demasks, Ra's has got the sword to his throat, and Bruce isn't even fighting back because he knows Ra's so well that he knows this isn't about the fight between them. And that's, for me, is where I was kind of seeing it as, the manipulation of Ra's wanting this point. Like, in his head, Bruce maybe figured out what he was doing, where he was leading him to, and that's why he didn't have to fight or have to throw down with him. He's in a completely defenseless position, arms at his side with a sword to his throat. So I was just like, I kind of just get that feeling between the two of them that, especially if you think about Batman Inc., what they're going to go, if they are doing the worldwide bat kind of deal, worldwide politics, the big picture thing is Ra's al Ghul. So I could see that we're going to maybe see, I don't want to say a meshing of the two, but I think there's going to be more coming out with this.
See, here's where I disagree with you a little bit. Here's where Bruce drops the mask and he goes, she doesn't deserve to die, Ra's, just because she did her job. And my job prevented me from being honest with her. We have a moment here with honor. He is appealing to the honor of Ra's al Ghul. I think Ra's was completely convinced that at this point in time it was his job to take out Vicky Vale. And that he was going to do it because she was an affront to him. And I really don't think it was about luring Bruce there. I think it was about destroying Vicky Vale because she dared to take this step. And when it was Ra's step to take. Mm-hmm. And Bruce here is appealing to the honor of him, saying, no, you don't understand. I need to handle this. I created this situation as a man of honor. And I think when Bruce was standing there letting him hold the sword to the throat, he was showing Ra's honor in a way that he wouldn't do that with the Joker. He wouldn't do that with the Penguin. He wouldn't do that with Two-Face. This is Ra's al Ghul, and he knows this guy well enough, this adversary well enough to know that, hey, I'm appealing to your honor here, your sense of honor. Our fight has always been about that for you. And at this moment right now, this isn't about you and me. This is about me and her. And you need to let me handle this out of honor. You were coming here out of what you felt was an affront to your honor, and it's really not. It's really about my honor and my duty to handle this situation. And really showing Ra's that he understands why Ra's was there. But, this is me. You need to understand that my sense of duty to this, my sense of honor to this supersedes yours. And he appealed to that with Ra's, and that's why I think Ra's says, I defer to your wishes, but this infantile need to hide who and what you truly are will continue to vex you. Until next time we duel, detective. So in that moment, I'm sitting here, I'm like, Ra's is deferring to this out of honor, walking away out of honor, because this would not be an honorable moment for him to defeat the detective. It's not the moment that he has driven. I took it more so at that moment. Raisha's like, I didn't drive you here. This isn't my fight with you. It was really about coming after her. We will have our day. Mm-hmm. Our moment will come. So I don't know. I read it multiple ways. So when you were talking about the way you were reading, I'm like, yeah, if you read it from a certain perspective, I get where you're coming from. But reading it from another perspective, I also get this vibe from it. And is this all about Bruce's honor and Bruce using his honor to appeal to Raisha's sense of honor and duty? I don't know. I like that about it. It's a deep story. It's a rich story. And it's something where I love when these two face off and you've got this sense of honorable adversaries. It's one of the things that I like about when you get into history and Immortals and this sense of, training and honing yourself. And, Raisha's group has this sense of honor. I'm not saying that you have to agree with it because it's a League of Assassins, but, it is one of those things that I do find that's incredibly interesting about the character. And he's one of Batman's rogues that are one of my favorites when he's used properly. He's not always, in this case, used very properly, and I really dug how this wrapped up and left Vicky and Bruce with these moments where she really had to say, I need to vanish. I've really put myself in danger in Gotham because people are now aware that I know the secret of the Bat. So by staying here, I'm in danger. But you think Batman would give me a job as this reporter? So, have we seen the last of Vicky Vale, or are we going to see more of her in Batman Incorporated or in the Batman world, or what is going to happen with her? I don't know. It was a very interesting ending, and I don't know where we're going to see her again or where she's going to pop up, but I was glad to see how she was handling this, and glad to see such a nice wrap-up to what we've seen with her gradually building in the absence of Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, I definitely think we're going to see more of her. Just because she's too much of an asset for him just to throw that away. And I dig these final scenes. It's funny with the Catwoman issue, with this issue. I keep seeing Bruce with these different women. I'm like, I could see him with Vicky Vale now. I could see him with Catwoman. And as you get these really cool moments where you see these strong, females who could keep up with Bruce Wayne, could keep up with the Batman, it's, you want to see that. It's the strength of Lois and Clark, that Lois Lane can keep up with Superman. She can be that great confidant to him. Vicky's definitely now a character that I would see could have that kind of role for Batman, where, I'll be honest with you, I didn't see it before.
Silver St. Cloud always had that role for me. That was something that I thought with her, we were going to see that. Chandra Kinsolving, to a certain extent, during the whole Knight's Fall, Knight's End thing, was something that I saw with her as well.
I've only read the Kevin Smith Silver St. Cloud, and seeing how she fit into that world, I can say yeah. But in the regular series, I'd never read when Silver St. Cloud was around, and with the Knight's Fall and all that, I didn't read those either. So that's another where I didn't get to see that character. For me, it was always Catwoman. I saw a couple cool interactions, the Hush stuff I saw, and I always wished Wonder Woman, Diana and Bruce would get together. I'm one of those people who like to see those two together, just because I think she's a powerful enough person who could deal with the life of Bruce. Well, now I'm seeing two more potential candidates, two more solid potential candidates. I always saw, Catwoman before, and I'm like, yeah, it's kind of neat, but I don't know. And now with this, running through the roads home, that her issue, I was like, yeah, okay, I can see it now. I understand why people are passionate. And same thing with Vicky. I now understand why, and I understand people's passion behind her for being the one in Bruce's life.
I recommend reading the Englehart Rogers stuff, especially Strange Apparitions by Englehart and Rogers. I thought was just a great example of where Silver St. Cloud worked. And that's definitely a spot that I would go to if you want to see some of that history of Batman. Sasha Bordeaux was a character pre-Checkmate, when we saw her in the Bat books as Bruce Wayne's bodyguard, and how she slowly got led into understanding the secret. I thought that was incredibly interesting with that character. And her strength, you got to see a lot of, I think you got to see a lot of her relationship with Mr. Terrific. Mm-hmm. Am I correct?
Yeah.
And that's a character who worked very well with Batman at the time, and I could have seen her having a relationship with him.
Yeah, and it's a character. I only read her Checkmate stuff, so that's really the only Sasha Bordeaux I know is Checkmate.
I do think Bruce is a character we want to see wind up with somebody. Because because it's so tragic that he. And I think that at the end game of this, I wonder if this might offer an opportunity for him to do that with his new worldview and a different role. Could we see him finally be able to have some aspect of that life? I don't know. My forerunner would be Catwoman. I would love to see him wind up with Catwoman out of all this. I don't know.
Yeah, he's had such a rough life. I just want him to know what love is, you know?
Oh, God.
At least I didn't sing it. I was thinking about it.
No, but I know you were.
It was either that or I was going to say him and Catwoman just have a groovy kind of love.
Did you read Knight and Squire?
Yes, I did.
The first issue? What did you think of that out of the starting gate? That was kind of interesting to me.
Interesting's a good word for it. You know, I was sitting there, I was like, okay, you know, there's been enough, you know, kind of usage of the character that I had a fascination with them. I'm wondering what's going to happen, you know, and I like seeing that these characters, the British heroes, British villains, are so much different than how we're looking at it. I needed to see a cultural differentiation. You know, when we had the Great 10, when they ran that limited series through, there was a definite different, you know, in those heroes and that characters, and we're seeing that same kind of differential. So I don't want to say bad. I don't want anyone to think this is a negative comment, but interesting is something that is definitely a strong word for me because I really need to see, you know, get my hands on the characters, get the groove going on who they are, what they're about, and really, you know, just kind of, I want to sink my teeth into them and just see what's going on here. I definitely, those are solid reads on my part. You know, what comes out, I'm like, oh, I got to see this. Oh, cool. After that first issue, I wanted to read the second one. So that's always a strength of a limited series, that it has you going, yes, I want to read more. I want to find out what's going on with them.
The Time in a Bottle. I thought that was an interesting use of a pub as a way to say, in this place, by magic, we have got ourselves an opportunity here for heroes and villains to be in the same spot. There's a truce here. You can't fight here. You know, this isn't an issue where we can arrest anybody. When they leave here, it's all a magic. You're popped out in different places. So there wouldn't be an opportunity for you to wind up going out and fighting afterwards. There's not a let's step outside, because if we do, we're both going to go in different places. So it was an interesting concept of setting up how they could all be in different spots. We got to see their version of the Joker, who likes the dress sense per se and the humor aspect of it all, but not the operating style of the Joker. He gets a little too out there. So I liked seeing that differentiation between characters. Mm-hmm. It was a little bit more lighthearted than what you would see in the Bat world, which I kind of liked.
He reminded me of the TV show Joker.
Yeah, that's kind of a good way to put it. But I'm also talking Knight and Squire in general. Like, Knight is very serious, and he's definitely your tried and true superhero, and there's a lot to take seriously about him. But I felt that their world was a lot more lighthearted and welcoming than Batman's Dark World. And it showed us that the way of crime fighting in England is a little different than what we've got in the U.S. And that's where I'm kind of like curious to see going from here, what are the major villains like? What is it like when they do battle on the streets with these villains? And what does that look like? I'm looking forward to seeing more than that. Because it was interesting to see in this issue just kind of a quick layout, like Wildcat making a guest appearance at the bar. Yeah. You know, that was kind of cool to me.
Well, it makes sense for him to hang out at a bar. You know, there's a superhero bar. He's in town. Hey, let's throw back a couple. That fits him. You know, fits his character. And it was just, you know, when you're talking about the fight on the street, I think it's going to be, you know, something completely different. I see it being more of, you know, a gentleman's, you know, fight than what we get in current Gotham, where, you know, they're spraying bullets and innocent, you know, protect the civilians, get the innocents out of here. I don't think we're going to have that kind of risk and that kind of jeopardy, you know, with these villains.
You know, it's interesting when you see here the heroes and villains too. What happens when somebody breaks the truce in there, and all chaos breaks loose in this pub, and we see the two partners where it really is, I don't want to share power anymore. I'm tired of taking a back seat to this guy. You know, I want to be the one to have all the power. And it does become about greed. It becomes about notoriety. It becomes about, you know, when you're a villain, it does become about power. And what happens when eventually the other one, your partner, wants more power than you? Or, if they were like the lackey, so to speak, what happens when they're tired of being that lackey? And I thought it was an interesting exploration there with the two of them in a world that seemed a little bit friendlier. But, it's kind of like enough's enough. I'm tired of being a joke. I want to be, the guy here, and I want people to take me seriously. And this partnership with you is not getting me that that sense of respect. Who are we? And I love how the guy who started off kind of as a villain, by the end of it realized, I think being a hero is a little bit more the way to go. If I want respect.
Sign me up.
yeah, it's kind of like, I see what the villains are like. Why? I don't know that I'd want to go that route. It seems like the heroic way to go is going to be the way. So I don't know. I'm enjoying this series so far. It's something. I'm with you. It's interesting is a good word for it because it's so new. And I think that's what I'm feeling right now. I'm wrapping my head around it and getting a handle on it. Your comparison to Great 10 is a good one. Because I think that series, I really enjoyed it out of the starting gate, but it was another one where I was trying to wrap my head around it early on because it was so new and so different. I actually give them a lot of credit for that, though, because I think that's a strength of Knight and Squire right now, this mini-series, and it's a good use of doing it in a mini-series, is that you're introducing new concepts and new characters in a different land with a different attitude, a different sensibility. And it's expanding the DC universe in a way. I like the exploration in space right now. In Rebels, we're seeing a lot of this. In the Green Lantern Corps, and especially in the new Green Lantern book, we're seeing this exploration of expanding the DC universe out in space. One thing I like about Great 10 and this book is it's expanding the DC universe on Earth, giving us a sense that it's not just the United States that has heroes, and it's not just the occasional one-off, and there are also villains that would go along with these heroes, and that the tone and tempo and the way that everything goes down and the sense of right and wrong and the sense of honor is going to be very different from place to place. And I like that. I like that concept. And I could see why Wildcat would want to hang out because it's a nutty place to hang out in. Yeah. You got a milkman throwing stuff around and fighting. And I don't know. I'm with Wildcat. I'd actually go to this. Tell me you wouldn't. If I'm in England, this is one of my first stops.
Yeah, come on. That's a given. I'd be there, and it'd be a fun time. And you catch it right at that crazy moment when all heck breaks loose. You're like, okay, let's throw down now.
And I think that's where the book worked for me, because by the end I was saying to myself, looking back on it and reading it through a second time, I get what Wildcat was. Putting Wildcat in there, I think, was a brilliant use, because I started seeing myself more in Wildcat's perspective. And I think that was the point of bringing him in. We needed to see somebody from our world, what we're used to in the DC universe, being brought into this new world over in England of characters. And I thought that was kind of cool, because I felt like I was journeying along with Wildcat in my second read-through. And that's where the story began to grow on me more, where I began to start seeing from that perspective. I'm a big fan of British television, and it was kind of cool to see this world, and I'm curious to see in issues. I'm assuming the other issues are going to take a different route than this first one did. This one kind of gave you an overview of the world, and I'm assuming we're going to get a little bit more specific as the story continues in issues 2 through 6. I'm interested. I'm definitely interested in this series. Interesting is a good word. It really is right now, because I'm trying to wrap my head around it, and I think in the first issue right now, I'm glad I picked it up. It's a very different flavor than anything that I'm reading right now, and I think that's what's it's kind of got me. I think we're both sitting here kind of saying the same thing. It's hard to put an exact word to what it was we were feeling, but it was. I'm in for the second issue.
Now, have you ever thought about other countries that you would like to see what their superheroes are like? Because I've always wondered what Australian superheroes would be like. Because, in my head, I got the whole Crocodile Dundee kind of rugged outback, kind of guy or girl who could survive in that type of environment, type of superhero coming out of it. Or, maybe some of the local, the local Aboriginal, characters kind of developing into some type of, superhero type of mindset. Have you ever thought about anywhere outside of U.S.? It's
funny. I would think with Grade 10, that was probably one of my top explorations. But honestly, with I've got cousins who live in England. I think this is one of the explorations that I was most interested in. And one of the things that I do think is working about this is it isn't what I expected. I like the surprise of it. I didn't want it to be like what I would think would be a stereotype of this is what, a story in England's going to be like. I love that you've got somebody local in Paul Cornell who is, sitting there saying, hey, this is really, if this is what was happening in England, this is a lot of what I think would be happening here. This is what the world would be like for Knight and Squire. So we're seeing something laid out that I think that's why we're both saying interesting, because it's unexpected. And I think that's a strength of the book. And I think that was a strength of Grade 10. Grade 10 was unexpected for me in how it approached things. And I thought that was a brilliant miniseries. By the time it was done at the end, I was one that I honestly wish had gone a little longer, because I felt like the explorations were working really well. And at the end, I felt Grade 10, it ended in a way where I felt like it needed another issue or something like that. And it's a miniseries that I loved all the way through. I thought it was really, really well done. And I think my feeling like it ended too quickly is because I just wanted more. Versus it's not a criticism of it in a negative way. I think with this series, I'm going to be very curious to see where it goes and what I learn about these characters in this world. Are we going to see these characters more in Batman Inc.? Are we going to see more minis out of these characters? I'm assuming, obviously, it's on how well the series does. But out of the starting gate, I found it interesting. And that's not meant as a negative criticism. I think that's the only way I can put it right now, as far as I'm interested enough that I want to see where it goes. I'm very tentative on how do I feel yet about these characters. I don't feel I know them well enough.
Yeah,
to give you a full definition. I think that's really what I'm trying to get at saying here is I don't feel I know this world well enough, but it's interesting enough to me that I want to continue following it.
Exactly.
I think it's probably the best way to put it. That's why we sound so tentative right now.
Yeah, I know. Because
it's new. And that's why I wanted to talk about this, because I think it's a different sort of discussion than we would have with the other books where we're more comfortable with the characters. I'm like, we got to bring up Knight and Squire just because it's so different. And I'm like, I don't know quite what to say. Other than that, I liked it and I'm interested, but it's different. And I think that's, in and of itself, I think that's interesting commentary on a book. Are you like intrigued for issue 2?
Oh, yeah. I definitely, when I was done with issue 1, I wanted to read issue 2. Mm-hmm. And that, I think, is a strength of the issue. I want more of this. I want to learn more. I want to get more exploration. I want to see them actually operate in a case kind of stuff, see how he does his thing. Squire, she's definitely an interesting character. I'm like, okay, I like the little kind of dynamic going on here. I want more of Knight and Squire after that first issue. And I think that in itself is a statement on how good it is.
I think what I'm going to be interested to see at the end of this is it's a 6-issue miniseries. Am I going to want to see this go series? Am I going to want to see another miniseries? Or am I just going to be glad that it was a miniseries and that it was done at all? Because sometimes it's like a good movie sometimes where you're just going to get to the end and kind of like, that movie was really good and it should stay contained the way it was. Or am I going to want to see more? I think that's what I'm going to be very interested to see at the end of this, is will I get attached strongly enough to these characters that I feel it should be an ongoing.
Yeah, because Grade 10 for me was, I wanted it to be an ongoing. Mm-hmm. After that final issue, I'm like, okay, now let's use this as the launching point for the ongoing Grade 10 issue series. I wanted more of that. So I'll definitely be curious to see if, when this is done, if I'm like, okay, let's go issue 7 and continue on with the roll.
Yeah, in Grade 10, we're not going to get a Grade 10 series.
No.
I'm pretty set on that because I know it kind of, I think sales-wise, it didn't do so well towards the end, which is sad. It is something I encourage people to pick up because I thought it was very cool. And exploration, just what you were saying. I never thought of Australia as far as exploring it. I think because the reason why is I'm so used to the DC Universe being set in what we consider the DC Universe that I haven't thought so much out of it. But like when you said it, I'm like, well, that'd be kind of cool. And it's one of the things that I'm enjoying right now. So maybe a series of miniseries, and maybe that's what we're going to see out of Batman Incorporated. Maybe we're going to see a jet-setting Batman, or maybe we'll see him in Austria. Maybe we'll see him in these different places. Bruce is going to have the opportunity to touch the world in a way we haven't. I don't know if that's what's going to happen here or not. I know that The Dark Knight, that Batman series is going to be set in Gotham with Bruce. So I don't know what Batman Incorporated is going to be yet. So I don't know. I don't know where we're going to see all of this. But there is certainly some opportunity to expanding the DC universe. And would it be another minis? Yeah. And I don't know that it all needs to be Bat Universe related. It'd be interesting to see some exploration of characters that have nothing to do with Batman at all. So would Australia? Sure. Italy? Yeah. I mean, bring them on. I think there's plenty of room for these characters. I think they need to do this judiciously in the sense that I think if you have writers who are passionate about a particular territory, a particular region, and they've got some great ideas for how to bring what's unique and interesting about that area into the comic, I say go for it. I think there's plenty of room for it. To do it just to say, hey, we've done, I'll use the Australia example just because you threw it out there, just to do a comic series set in Australia because we should do one set in Australia, I think ultimately that's going to diminish the goal of that, if that makes sense. But I think if you've got my honest answer to that is, if you've got a writer who's passionate enough for doing a superhero series set in Australia, with some characters who we're bringing them now into the DC universe as part of expanding it, I say go for it because I think that would be interesting. You've got an opportunity for some unique storytelling. And I think that's why am I interested in Knight and Squire right now? Because this is different. Yeah. Why did I like Grade 10? It was different. I think these things work as miniseries. And I agree with you that I would like to have seen more Grade 10. I'm hoping maybe we get another shot at seeing them in a miniseries or something down the road, or at least making appearances somewhere, because I thought they were very well-developed characters. And I'm hoping this delivers on that level, and that we get a chance to feel that same way about Knight and Squire. So, kind of cool.
To the Batmobile. Let's go.
Atomic batteries to power. Turbines to speed.
Here, ready to move out.
Jim, we're both laughing because we really planned this one to be an off-the-cuff, unedited program because of the weeks that we're both having. I'm working on report cards now with my students, and you've had quite the week at work. I'm getting ready for report cards, not only report cards, but conferences next week as well. This is just a crazy time of the year. But we wanted to put out a show. And we have a number of segments still from New York that we're going to be airing on our next episode, but they require a great deal of editing and cleanup for me because we were on the show floor and there's a lot of background noise, so I want to cut out anything that doesn't fit. So, we decided to do kind of an off-the-cuff chat about current books. And we said, let's start off with Superman Earth 1. And when we started chatting, we're like, well, there's a couple things I'd like to talk about first, and that led to an hour and 21-minute segment on just a lot of great books that came out, which I'm glad we got to talk about. But let's jump into this Superman Earth 1 hardcover. It's J. Michael Straczynski. It's Shane Davis. It's just such a gorgeous book. We're looking at colors by Barbara. It's CIARDO. Inks by Sandra Hope. Lettered by Rob Lay. And Superman is, of course, created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. And Eddie Berganza and Adam Schlagman are the editors. And this is something, it's Robin Brosterman, design director on the books, and Louis Prondy is the art director. I wanted to shout out that just whole creative team, because this book, from looking at the cover, the whole visual style straight on through, I love DC's original hardcovers. This is something that's just been consistent. That Joker one that was released recently, I really love. The Arkham Asylum one that came out recently. This is another one to add to that list. I was so excited for Earth 1. I'm hoping that we're going to get this Batman Earth 1 eventually, and it's delivered like this, and I'm hoping we get more of these. That's one of the biggest compliment I can give this out of the starting gate is, I want to read more of this Superman.
Yes. Big time. I want another Superman Earth 1, Year 1. I want to see him go through the exploration. I want to see him discover kryptonite and learn more about who he is. There's so much from this character that I want to see more of, that I am just so gung-ho, hoping that we get something else, story-wise in this universe. It was one of those things. I put down the book. I was like, wow, I want more. I want more now. And it just really just strong. It's one of the reasons why I always say I trust in his direction that he's going with stories. With the Wonder Woman stuff, I'm like, I trust the creative team because I know this guy can write. He is a talented writer, so I enjoy his writing style. So I trust what he's going to do. With the other stuff where I'm not at the loving point, but it's still something there. Same deal here with this. I want more from him about Earth One. Let him have some fun with it. Let him flesh out characters and do whatever he's going to do with it. I want more.
It's kind of funny. When you were saying that, I was thinking about something like, geez, I wish Wonder Woman, and it's not saying I'm not liking it, but I wish that had been Wonder Woman Earth One.
Yeah.
Because in many ways, and I'm not, obviously this story is going to connect back into the DC universe. We're going to see how it all connects and everything, and I'll probably feel very differently about it when we hit there. But I liked this so much knowing, I think walking in and the expectation being this is taking place on a different Earth. It's going to be a new, fresh, different exploration of Superman. I wonder if I'd read his Wonder Woman in an Earth One hardcover like this, if maybe I'd be in a different place right now where I would be, I'm liking it. But I'm wondering if I would be sitting there going, oh my God, I adore this is the best Wonder Woman. One of those type of things, knowing that it's Earth One. Because this Superman, I'm like, whoa, this is thrilling. But I have no expectations of it continuity-wise linking to anything. It's its own continuity. And I quite like that. It was actually freeing to read this, I'm a continuity junkie. I love continuity, so don't get me wrong here when I'm saying this, but I found this freeing to be able to just kind of read this story and know this is a very contained piece, lots of pages, and really delved in depth into what drives this kid, what motivates him. We're seeing a Superman here who's trying to figure out his place in the world with powers. Should I become the football star? Should I become the scientist because I have this knowledge base? What should I do? I could make lots of money to take care of Mom, but none of this feels satisfying to me. None of this feels like I'm making my mark in the world. I'm making a true difference on the level that I can and should for who I am at the core, for the values I've been raised with. And I loved that exploration of this whole thing right from the starting gate, that we see a Superman who isn't quite sure who he should be yet. And we see him helping people out along the way, helping, somebody's about to get mugged. And these moments for him of being kind of like, where am I in this world? That would be something as an alien with these kind of powers. How much should I reveal? How much should they know about me? When should I wear my mask? When should I not wear my mask? And it does show the distinction with Superman that when he is Superman, he's not wearing his mask. The mask is every other time. And I liked that aspect of this story a great deal.
It was funny seeing him do the tryouts for the sporting events and stuff like that. In one hand, in my head, I'm like, yeah, I could understanding that, but I think I would be bored with, how everything would be so easy for him. I've played video games with, nieces and nephews, and when they were really younger, I could actually beat them in the game. And, it's, as they get a little bit older, say like, 5 or 6, then they just start owning me. But when they're barely able to walk, I'm destroying them. I'm just really just taking it out, and it's not.
When their fingers don't quite get around the controller. What? When their fingers don't quite get around the controller.
Exactly. Yeah, I got them. I got them then. Once they're old enough to actually hold the controller firmly, and they have that whole control of both thumbs and stuff like that, then they destroy me. I admit that. But those early days, and that's kind of how I compare Clark with his Superman abilities on an athletic field. That would be absolutely no challenge for him. There'd be no thrill of competition knowing that you're beating them. You're only doing that, for the money and for the fame and kind of stuff. And that's why I was glad to see he didn't really say, yeah, this is for me.
No, I think it was an exploration of him trying things out to see what is for him, what feels right. And I love that it came into moral and ethical decisions as well as, like you said, boredom even. It's like, where am I going to feel challenged? Where am I going to feel like I am fulfilling myself and in many ways fulfilling my role in the world? And that's hard for a person who's an alien like him with those powers to find that place. And that's one of the things I found so rich and engaging about this was I feel like I really know this guy. And as I was going along on the ride, I'm like, he totally feels like at the core values, everything that I like about Superman throughout his history It pulls stuff from the Silver Age, pulls stuff from the Golden Age, pulls stuff from modern day. Yet it kind of puts it all together and tells a brand new version of the story in a way that just works. And I really liked that we didn't have to worry about how this connects in with the main DC universe. And this is something I always enjoyed about Elseworlds. And I'm hoping that this Earth 1 hardcover does well, and it leads to a series of them. I'm hoping we get to see a lot more of this, and more opportunities to, when creative teams are ready for it. And do them judiciously. Don't throw out like 10 gazillion of them. Do them and do them well. And when they're put out, make this a line that really feels like this. It's top shelf. It is top quality. And you're going to have lots of different creators chomping at the bit then to say, hey, when's my turn to do an Earth 1? When's my turn to take a character and do this? Or when's my shot to take the Earth 1 Superman farther? Or, and I think you're going to see more creators taking those opportunities to do that. And I would love to see those projects come to fruition because of that. I think there's a lot of creators out there, writers and artists, who having the opportunity to take some time and put together a seriously strong hardcover like this would do it and do it well. And I'm anxious to see those. So I'm hoping this is the birth of a line of hardcovers that follow in this tradition, because this, to me, was pretty darn near perfect. I found nothing, and I do think the open-mindedness of the approach to this is the fact that it gave the creative team complete freedom to play around with the concept of Superman while staying at the core values of who he is. I think it's what works with Smallville.
Yeah.
And this is what worked in this hardcover for me, was that I didn't feel like I had to connect it to anything. This is a great template. Hey, we're going to do a movie? Here you go. If you're not going to do it with Smallville, do this.
And here's the thing. It wasn't even just playing around with the Superman mythos. They, he worked with the supporting cast and the crew and all that. Jimmy Olsen in this was outstanding. He was that crazy photographer that's out there. When you're a photojournalist, when you're doing what he's doing, he's not going to be the bow tie, gee golly, gee willikers, chief. No, he's going to be a little bit crazy. He's going to be a little bit hardcore. There's got to, because you got to sit there in the fire for that shot. And it's that passion to get the shot. It's not about he's pushing aside personal safety for that Pulitzer, for that moment, to be the one to say, yes, I got this. Boom, here it is. This is me. I thought that was just a cool usage of a character that, yay, I was thrilled for that.
One question I've got about the art on this one, and this isn't something that I'm expecting you to answer, but one of the things I noticed in these original hardcovers is the art seems to always have a step up. And I wonder what their timeline is in putting this together production-wise. If they have a little extra time to kind of do a little bit more of the bells and whistles that a person on a monthly book wouldn't always get the chance to do, if that makes any sense. Because I really enjoy the art of Shane Davis, but I do feel like in this book we've seen it step up.
Yeah,
and I don't know what's driving that. And that's I'm saying that I wonder how this production-wise was put together, because it's a gorgeous piece all the way through. And I didn't feel that there was a single panel that I had any problems with. I really thought that it just really all the way through is a very well produced piece of artistic. I don't know what else I'd say. It's it's really just it's a beautiful, beautiful presentation.
Oh, yeah, you can see they really just went into it, with background detail, with facial expressions on the background people. Yeah. Just, you definitely, they had to have probably a little bit more time than what you normally get on a monthly series is what I'm going to guess. Just because, you still have, of course, your schedule, but it's probably not as high pressure to maintain the schedule to get, the right piece, to get that right look to it, is how I'm guessing.
I love the conversation with Ma on the telephone. Just the close-up shots of Ma there. I'm like, wow. You get to see a lot of warm emotion off of her. There's warm tones in the color work. There was something about it, just to me, it was a very pretty piece to see that there. And her just explaining to him, when you raise a son tall and strong, hearing, this is what I'd like to give you, well, that's nice. But what you really want to hear is, this is what I want for me. To live the life and dream the dreams I've always longed for. And he's like, but isn't that selfish? Oh, Clark, that's not selfish. That's how futures get built. I've got all kinds of gifts from folks, most of them trying to make up for something they feel guilty about. and you've got nothing to worry about on that count, Clark. Mm-hmm. And I really like this mom saying, hey, you've been this great son to me. You've been there for me. I've always been able to count on you. You've brought so much joy into my life. You've brought all these things. And this is what a mother, I connect with my own mom, with Ma Kent, which in a way I never expected to do because I've always been a Batman guy. And I think it was something I clearly attribute to that Andreyko one-shot, Ma Kent, Superman Returns. I don't. Ever since I've read that, I connect. Not that my mom's, Ma Kent's age or anything like that. I don't take it that way. But it's just the emotion when she's written this way of her being this nurturing mom who really is looking out more for her son than herself. And I really do get that point where, she finds value in the years that they've spent together and joy. And, it's a lot of time. I get Clark's end of it, though, too. And he's sitting here saying, but shouldn't I be doing more for you? Shouldn't I? And there's been many times where I've felt that way with my mom quite recently with things she's been going through. And, where I feel like, am I doing enough? And feeling like I'm not a lot of times. And, having her come back and selflessly telling me, no, you don't understand. It makes me feel good to know you are. This was stuff, this tete-a-tete between the two of them, it's wow. It makes us, for those of us that, have that connection with our moms, I think it's something where when you read this book, it's just like, whoa, I get this. And it's just really, really, I know your relationship with your mom. It's incredibly well written. I think any mother and son who have a good, strong relationship, you can connect with that. And I think this is something that was a strength of this gem.
Oh, big time. And it's hard to completely say, sometimes when I'm getting into a comic and I start getting an actual emotional response from it, I do sometimes have a hard time expressing those emotions just because it's something that's inside my head. I know exactly what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, but when it comes time for me to verbally express it, that's a difficult thing. With these moments between Clark and his mom, I was really just taken back by it. For a lot of, almost exactly some of the stuff you're saying with, when I look back with my parents, with my folks, with my mom, and just how I want to help her, how I want to make things easier on her. Mom currently has, a busted up leg that she's been messed up for a couple weeks now, and it's not really getting better. She's probably gonna have to have surgery on it and stuff like that. And I see those moments with her. I see her in pain, and I just I basically want to walk over, pick her up, and carry her because I'm like, I want her to take 100% all of the weight off of that leg, and it's tough to sit back and do it. So I completely felt what Clark was feeling, how he wanted to do more for his mom. For this lady who, was there for him, who was the nurturing soul, who was that person that really, brought him out of some of his darkest moments, out of his confusing and crazy childhood that he had. He had this rock, this stable, person there for him. And now he feels it's his turn to do right by her. And I just completely, really just had that connection with Clark Kent in Earth 1 almost immediately. And I thought that was a great way for first we got this connection with Clark Kent. Now we're going to get a connection with Superman as the story plays out. I love that.
We saw Clark try out all these other jobs, but my favorite segment was Daily Planet. This is obviously where we always want to see Clark wind up. I love that he didn't accept the job. He took the application, and very similar to the other jobs, he was unsatisfied with what he saw there. He's basically told by Perry at the end that, prove yourself you're worthy for the planet, not as she is now, but for what she was in the past, and the sense of, what can I do here? He's not left with this feeling like, what can I accomplish at the Daily Planet? But we got to see, what Perry does bring to the table with Lois Lane, how he cut out a major paragraph from her article because it just got redundant. And, as an editor, he's got to make those judgment calls. But you're right, the development of Lois, Perry, and Jimmy, and them being fleshed out as unique characters in this world, all very strong. And this struggling paper, still trying to make a difference, still trying to get the word out. Lois still chomping at the bit, trying to get the front page storylines in this paper that's really floundering amongst the competition. And just, that there's an ethics in that place of journalism. And where sometimes it'll probably take Lois to some, dark stories to try and get that front page, but yet, it's about getting the truth out there. It's about publishing the straight facts without having that, emotional connection to it, of, putting your own, this isn't the editorial section. I love Perry's view on that, saying this is about publishing the facts in the beginning. The editorial section, further down the paper. You want to be there? That's fine. I loved that explanation of what it means to be a reporter and how there's some ethical differences there. And it was something where I'm like, ooh, yes, I'm digging this, because I think too often in papers nowadays, you don't always see that stance where, it's objective. It's a lot more. I think the paper's putting a spin on things and has
Amen.
a theme. So I think it's something, when I see this, I'm like, ooh, I get where Perry's coming from this, and I do think it's a problem in a lot of today's papers. Not all of them, but I do think it's a problem in a lot of today's papers where there's a spin. And I like it. I think this is something that really worked here, and it was a very cool aspect of this story that explained the planet and what makes it a little bit different.
It's funny you bring that up, because one of the things that really angers and annoys me about the current nature of what is the current media that we're dealing with, whether it's newspapers, TV shows, online stuff, is the fact that it is so personalized. It is, their own personal agenda or their own, policy line, whether it's conservative side, liberal side, they're all doing the same thing. I miss, the days where a reporter was just about reporting the news, about reporting the facts, not about saying, see, look at how bad this person is, and then you flip over to, the other side of the thing, and they're going to show the exact same news story, talk about the exact same thing, but blame it on the other side. And I'm just like, it angers and annoys me when I see that, because I'm like, you know what? News used to be about that. It used to be about reporting the facts. Tell us what's going on in the world. Don't tell us what's going on in the world and why it's, the Republicans' fault, or why it's the Democrats' fault, or why it's this group's fault, or something like that. Don't sensationalize it. Be informative. Let me know what is going on. And it's, seeing Perry have that level of ethics and that, just, this is the Daily Planet. This is what we are about. This is who we are kind of deal, where I just ate that up. And again, we talk about how this Clark, this Superman's different, but he still is that same guy, that same character that we like. Perry, a little bit different, but he's still that same Perry White that is so cool in our universe. So again, another just exploration, a little bit, going into who he is, but it's still a comfortable character. There's nothing, jarring. There's nothing radical or anything like that. We don't have to worry about Perry with the spiked mohawk or, or whatever. This is Perry White. You can see that right there in him. And I thought that is a great usage of, again, another supporting character in the Clark, in the Superman universe that, I was so glad to see, and I was so glad that he gave him time to express that. And we got to get into that, where they could have spent the entire time talking about Clark or talking about the birth of Superman or fighting off the aliens. No, he took his time to tell the whole story of the whole Superman universe. And that, for me, is the strength of this book.
I love the bits in Superman where we get to see Clark fly off into space for the purpose of getting some quiet, some solace, and just from some perspective. Let me get away from all the noise, all the distractions. We all do this in our own way. We don't fly into space, but we have these moments where we just want to be alone with some quiet and just to think. I think a lot of times we don't have enough time to do this internal reflection, and I think it's a good message from Superman that sometimes even a Superman needs to get away from it all and just kind of reflect on everything, to come back a little bit more objective about the situation, to pull in what you know about your past, what you've learned, the best things that your family's taught you, the best thing that interactions with people have taught you, and what can I bring back to the table. In this case, we get to see his reflection on what happened in his past and his life, and what his origin looked like in this universe, and how there's a piece of this ship is all that they've got left, and where is the rest of it? I love how it plays into such a huge factor in the story that the ship is something a little bit more than we ever realized before. I really liked that aspect of how the ship was used in this, and how we didn't see the traditional the traditional crystal leading to the Fortress of Solitude. I love that. I eat that up. But I was glad that they, let's take the ship and bring it a little bit more into this, and make that the whole craft was constructed in such a way to be a source of knowledge, and to be triggered and activated when Clark hit a certain age, or, hit a certain situation in their life, or when Clark was threatened. Whatever aspect that was in this. How did you take it? What was it that activated the ship? in your mind?
I took it that it was about it was the outside threat coming in. It wasn't that Clark was at a certain age or anything like that. I took it that the ship recognized, and Clark, and his, agitated state kind of deal, all of that, it was a factor of just the ship knew he needed the ship at that time, and it was time to, okay, it's time to reveal everything. I took it as like a artificial kind of intelligence, kind of recognizing what was going on around him.
Yeah, I agree. And it was, I don't know, I wonder if the ship wouldn't have activated earlier if it never been broken up. I mean, if it didn't lose a part of it and that type of thing, if the damage...
Could be. If it had stayed, if they had been able to recover the whole ship instead of the government get their hands on it, yeah.
What if the Earth One Superman's ship wasn't destroyed?
Yeah.
What would his life have been like? I really liked that. I liked seeing his childhood, too, where you got to see him, how he had to hold back through his entire life. Even though he wasn't it looked like he wasn't quite as strong when he was younger, but it was clear that he was holding back when a kid's punching him. Mm-hmm. He needed to hold back and say, I can't react to you. If I do, if I act like I'm nothing more, if I act like I'm not a coward, I could tear your head off. And that was that moment, that sense of loneliness, of not being able to be totally yourself, not being able to let go, plays later on when he finally is able to let go. And how his dad's saying to him, when you are finally, I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but I think this little moment in his childhood does so play into that future part where you just see him, when you are finally able to let go, you will know who you are. In that moment, you will understand yourself and your role, and that whole message that was played out throughout all this is something that I think was so wonderfully set up here in the beginning. With seeing him in his childhood, seeing him trying to find that job, seeing him trying to find his place in this world, we get a nice setup to that. This poor alien child who is so different was raised by loving parents who were really so hard trying to teach him how to keep himself hidden from a world that could really ruin him if he came out and people manipulated him in the wrong ways. It really was saying, hey, you've got to find your right path in this world the right way and try to do the right thing. And, and his parents not totally understanding what that would be for him either. Because Dad, who was a pivotal figure for him, who gave him great advice, taught him some great moral values, didn't 100% understand what route Clark needed to go on. I think he would have been incredibly pleased had he lived with the route that Clark went, but I love that he was saying, no, your goal here is, let's set Mom up, and you be the responsible male figure. You are taking over for me, so your job is to make sure that Mom is never in need of anything. And I get that, and I loved how Dad did that. But I like that Clark, and I think that's an important message in this too, is that Clark understood that we take the best of what our parents teach us. And yet at some point in time, we grow mature enough where we can be objective and decide what's best for us while still retaining what they gave us. And that's something, and that sometimes might lead us onto a different path. And that path's okay. And that was kind of a cool part of this as well, because it didn't take anything away from Dad. And Dad is still just as cool as I've always loved Pa Kent. But I loved that Clark kind of developed his own identity out of this and outgrew what Dad didn't have the vision to see that, hey, wait a minute, there might be a different path that Clark is maybe going to go on that's going to make him even better or even stronger of a person and make a more of an impact on the world as a whole than I ever would have realized. And I mean that not just as him as Superman, but him in the Daily Planet. Was something that, him finding the value of these people at the Daily Planet that we do see later is something that I just thought was so rich about this story. I'm going to say it again. I adored this. And this, if you didn't read this and you're like halfway through this right now, stop this, pause this, go buy it. Highest possible recommendation, because this is going to be more of this kind of chat.
Oh, yeah. And it was funny. The thing with me, seeing these early stuff and the early exploration, and I always get the same kind of thought process going on, and the question always pops in my head: what would I do if I had the powers of Superman? Would I become Superman? Would I become, as I said, I've never thought about the athlete role. I usually think about what if I became like a super soldier, or what if I became a super cop? You go to the worst city out there and you become a cop there because you could bullets would bounce off you. You could be, super speed all over the place, do all types of stuff. And I always wonder, would that be enough of the usage of the powers, though? Would it be enough to, fight crime in, say, New York City or L.A. or something like that, or, Detroit, or pick a city that's high crime, large, big booming metropolis type of, situation, throw you in there? Or is it better that how Clark handles this, how Superman handles it, where he isn't, locked down to one thing, locked down to, the regular everyday crimes, but he deals with the whole humanity, all of humanity, the world stuff that it needs a Superman to do it. And it's always interesting exploration in my head when I see this, when I think about it. And this book had those same thoughts running through my head throughout it.
I love the page where he had the tear running down his cheek when he was talking to Dad.
Yeah.
And just showing how much that relationship means, and how much at this moment really opening up his soul to his dad and just saying, I'm really at this stage in my life where, I can't accept settling for something mediocre, something that doesn't at its core give me the kind of values, give me the kind of, I won't disappoint you. And he does repeatedly say that, I won't disappoint you. And I love that moment where, it's, I miss you. I would love to talk, and you could tell so much so, he would love to talk to him directly about this.
Yeah.
What he's been through, every moment that he's had, every job he's tried out, why they haven't worked for him. And there was something I felt powerful about those moments, because I don't think in every Superman story I've read, since the 70s, that I've always felt like I've connected with Superman, like I can hang with him, like I know who he is at his core as a person. I think the best Superman stories are the ones where I do feel like that, where I feel like I've gotten to know him, where I feel like I understand him. It's, why do I always refer to the Kansas farm boy? I don't think it's as simple as that. I think it's, when we think of the Kansas farm boy, I think in a lot of those stories are when we feel like we get to know Clark and we get to understand and hang with him. He's not this godlike figure that we're looking up to. He's this guy that is on our level. And then we realize that there's something more to him that takes him beyond that. But he does teach us things about ourselves when he has a vulnerability. And I think Superman can have a vulnerability, yet show us the inner strength of working past that vulnerability to become something more, which is something I think we all struggle with, and he doesn't. He just makes it look like you can do this, and he makes us want to do it. And I love when Superman kind of makes us want to get past our own vulnerabilities, our own humanity, to become something more, to be super in our own ways. And that's the cool part about Superman. That's where Superman really works. And this segment really just, to me, at its core level, brings him down to the human level in a way where I think we connect with him so deeply and want to become something more because of that connection.
Yeah. Exactly. It's the man behind the super that makes you want more and makes you read more. And really, that's the connection. And yeah, I'm sitting here as you were talking, I'm just nodding my head, going, "Oh yeah, I hear you."
It was funny when a lot of times people wonder how we pick books for the show, and it really is a matter of sometimes we know ahead of time, like, hey, this is coming up, let's definitely talk about this. Earth One was something you and I never really discussed talking about on the show. We knew it was coming, and I think way back when it was announced, we said, oh yeah, we definitely got to talk about it on the show when it's released, but we haven't really talked about it since. This book kind of came out, and we picked it up and started reading it, and we were talking this week, and I think the first thing that we both said was, we need to talk about this book. And I let a lot of times drives the discussions on this show. There's so many books that are released in the course of the week, and we usually try to pick, the top things that have interested us, that we found that were unique. And this is a great example of something that I just think is unique, and just blew me away with his presentation.
A solid emotional response, and it was just, it was the funny thing that no Lex Luthor in this story. And if you had told me, ahead of time that there's no Lex Luthor, I may have had you got to have Lex Luthor kind of moment. But as I was reading this, I never once said, wow, they should have Lex here. This would be a great spot for Lex. I read this. I was like, okay, this is cool. I like this. I never once did I miss him, and I love him as a villain. I love him as Superman's arch nemesis. I thought that was just, for me, a shocking, but also a positive portrayal, a strong statement for how good the villains in this book, how good his adversary was, and how multi-layered it was. So I thought that's just a wow statement for me.
And it showed, see, I love Lex as a Superman villain as well, but it does show that Superman does not always need to be about that. And I liked that they didn't immediately go to that. I love that the ship turned out to, in their study of the ship, turned out to be an opportunity for them to then also show us that there's this other object coming. What is that? And what does that mean for Earth when this other object comes? And I love the way that they slowly built to that, showing that our government had Clark's ship all along, and has had it since he was a child, and have tried to unlock its secrets. And it does lead to the fact that they understand that he is an alien right from the get-go. Because when he shows up and they recognize the ship responds to him and connects to him, they put to the fact that this guy, this Superman, is in fact this alien that came to Earth way back when. So I love that, which I think is a very today way that it would have gone down. I think they would have found his ship, and we would have seen that type of thing happening. They would have been aware our instruments are strong enough. So it was a very modern look at what would it be like if Superman happened today. Yeah. And that's one of the things I like about it. What's great about a reimagining is you have an opportunity to really take a look at how could we tell this story while maintaining everything that worked, but modernizing a little bit. Man of Steel by John Byrne. I loved Man of Steel by John Byrne. What did I love about it? At the time, it modernized the Superman mythos and made it very today at the time. And we're seeing that here. I think this has done something very similar to what worked in Man of Steel. And I think that's very cool. Now, there's a mystery going on for Clark because this unidentified object has led to then things seeking him out, seeking out clues to him. His room is completely destroyed. And why is it destroyed? Well, it's no accident that the piece of the ship was in there. And, that led to him pulling the ship out and his costume out and trying to figure out, hey, what's going on with me? And, again, this leads to now the first connection to the piece of the ship giving him knowledge, giving him some insight into his past, giving him some insight into his parents, giving him some insight into, and I liked that. It was having difficulty giving him that full connection at first because it hadn't fully connected with the original ship. But I liked seeing this step-by-step of the ship awakening, the ship connecting, because there was, as you said earlier, Jim, that threat to Clark. And that was what finally kind of triggered it. I don't know if that was what was meant to trigger it all along, which would make sense because this war had gone on between Krypton and this other planet. So maybe it was all along intended that they knew Clark could potentially be followed by these people, and maybe the ship was meant to stay silent until they came close enough, because maybe if the ship was active, that would have been a beacon for them to then attack Clark. So maybe it was all along that the intention was this thing would not activate and give Clark this knowledge unless it was necessary. So I don't know. I'm kind of, that's kind of another way to maybe look at why would this ship stay dormant. Maybe it wouldn't activate unless it was ever really needed for this type of situation. But I loved the look of the alien tech when it came in.
Yeah, it definitely had that futuristic, because we talked earlier about the art, how they really just stepped up, and this was another one of those, you could say it's your classic alien type invasion where you have this massive alien fleet that is just storming you, and you're like, okay, we have no chance. Just looking at the heavens, just looking at what's coming at you, you're thinking right now, okay, that's it, it's over, game over. Let's start talking. Okay, we'll be, your willing servants. How about that? Spare us and, yay, aliens, we're on your side now, kind of deal. You're looking for that angle. And I thought that was just a cool kind of, moment of the incoming, okay, what are we going to do now?
I like seeing the reporter mentality, though, of Lois and Jimmy.
Yeah.
The two of them saying, hey, we're going out into the war zone, because you know what? This is something that only reporters would do. And I'm talking about true reporters. Like, we've got to get the truth out there. We've got to get the news out there to people that this is what happened. This is a chance for us to get the scoop. This is the chance for us to tell people what's really going on here and to make sure the story gets told right. with on-site information about this, putting themselves at risk. It's a bravery. And there is something about that. It's that truth aspect that comes out there. And I think that's what Perry was trying to make of in the beginning of it. And it's something that where I think Perry as an editor in this is really strong, because we get to see what he's bringing to the table in his leadership of the Daily Planet and how he's willing to bump elements from his reporters' articles to keep that goal of what the classic Daily Planet was all about. I love that, because I think that inspires people to follow him and do this, even though he can be gruff and downright mean to them. They respect him, and I get why, and I think that's important.
Well, sometimes you got to have just a little bit of to you to be that, kind of leadership role, to be that mentor type of role, to be that, to be the boss. He had to, kind of have that negative side of it. But I really just love the complete chaos and anarchy we're seeing throughout the world as this invasion's going on. Different cities building, London Tower. You had some Rome stuff going on there,
Hong Kong,
just this pure chaos. And I love seeing, a good art team, a good creative team that's telling a story, that's fleshing it out, and you get that, that beautiful chaos that comes along with, your wars and your battles and your action sequences, that it's just this, while Death War is not a beautiful and not a good thing, when you're telling the story, you're able to portray it to a point where you get it, you hear, you feel the sounds of battle. You get that, there's that crazy, chaotic nature of it. And then you throw Jimmy and Lois right in the middle of it. And it was just, these were scenes where I went back through, and I read them through a couple times just because I was enjoying them, just enjoying the visual treat that I was getting from them.
One of the things I loved about Jor-El and Lara when we got to see them in this segment was they show a lot of times, I think that there's certain people who are lucky. Like, I was lucky enough to be raised by both parents. But I think it also shows that there are parents who are capable of doing the father-mother role, if that makes sense, the balance of it. Because Jor-El shows a lot of times, and he shows it here, he's got that cool kind of like, he needs everything. He needs all this information, this knowledge. I'm the scientist. These are the things that he needs. And I'm looking at this objectively. I love my son, and I want to make sure my son has these things that he needs. But Lara's coming back and saying, hey, there's something else he needs too. And he needs the love and contact and validation. And I think those are things that he got from the Kents. We got to see those things in the values they were instilling in him. And it was something that Lara was talking about that she was hoping that he would have, because he wasn't going to have it from them. And I love that she brought that up. And it made me think about this. I'm like, wow, I was lucky enough to have both of my parents. But I think there are people who are fortunate enough where they were raised by a single parent, where they got these kind of things from both their mom and dad. I just loved that moment where it mattered so much to me to really think about, wow, is this a perfect parent unit or what? Right here in their concerns, that the two of them together as partners give him the complete picture that he would need, the complete love that he would need as a son. And I think it was a great example of just what I think are perfect values for parents. And I do think single parents are capable of providing the same thing as long as they have that balance of both sense of values in what they're bringing. Because, Jor-El's right. He does need all those things that Jor-El put in there. But Lara's right in that, there's a contact, a humanity that you do need as well that needs to be a part of that. And there's an emotional connection that comes from that, that warmth that people bring to each other. And that was cool. I just loved the way that this all played out. And I loved the introduction of them. I loved the different art styling for Krypton and for them, where it felt very reminiscent of the classic, yet at the same time it had a little bit of a new flair to it. It didn't feel like it had to be stuck to what we've traditionally known as what the Superman's world looks like. And I think that was something that I really felt that was a freedom for the art team in how they were handling this. This book had a good balance throughout, where I never felt that any character was drawn out of what I would consider what they should look like, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. I really felt that, yes, they were all modernized and they had a different look and something that was unique to this book, but yet I felt like they were all those characters. They were the genuine articles of what they did, a nice balance of changing them, but not so much that they were unidentifiable, I guess is where I'm going with that.
And I tell you, I liked those sequencing where it wasn't your traditional boxes. They broke it up because it was being, the electronic energy being fed into Clark's mind. So it wasn't your neat, crisp, normal boxes as you would get on a comic. You had that kind of energy kind of surrounding it, breaking up. And even the one page as it's ending, a good chunk of the page isn't visible there. It's, just a plain blank white sheet. And I thought that was, another good usage of just non-traditional artwork that was going on in it. So I was like, cool.
And also showing that would be the last memory the ship would have of the parents. That it would be broken up as the ship was leaving. Because, at that moment, there's nothing else to tell. The ship's gone now. And that's it. That's the end of the story from the ship's perspective. So I thought that was very cool. It was interesting to see. And then Clark kind of comes to at this point. What did you think? We didn't really talk about this much. What did you think about the artistic styling of Clark? Kind of a younger Clark than we're used to. The hairstyle's a little bit different, things like that. What did you think about the presentation of Clark?
Well, definitely liked it. I really enjoyed seeing this younger version of him. And you talk about that scene when he comes out of it. That, for me, was just that great dun-dun-dun kind of moment, because he goes through everything, he hears and knows what's going on, and you get that look of determination in his face. It's like Clark, is like, okay, I got a job to do. I got to do something here. Something's going on. And I thought that was just a cool moment. Just segue from the kid holding his head going, to this, to the little bit more confused kid going, hey, what's going on here? And then all of a sudden, bam, Superman kind of mode.
I think this is we talked about favorite Superman actors and what works and what made actors identifiable as Superman when they tried to make it their own. I think this is a great example of an actor who made Superman his own, where, he feels very Superman, but he wasn't trying to be another Superman, if that makes sense. And I think that's what worked here. I'd love to see, in these goofy crossover nonsense. I don't want to see it anytime soon. But, if this is a part of the multiverse, I wouldn't mind at some point seeing this Superman have an opportunity to interact with ours. Yet, there is that part of me that would kind of like to protect this as its own entity, if that makes sense as well. Because I think what worked about this is it's so divorced from continuity. So I'm very torn. I kind of like knowing that it is a part of the multiverse. That we saw at birth at the end of Trinity, which I'm guessing we're saying this is that universe, right?
Yeah, I'm assuming that, yeah.
But I'm kind of content with if that's all we'll ever know, that it just kind of stays in its own separate place. And, we get to just great stories told in this that don't need to necessarily be connected, other than that, for all of us continuity fans, we know that it's part of the multiverse, and that's yay. Yay for that. But it's a fun story for that end. Now, we go back to seeing Lois and Jimmy, and again on the battlefield, but I think the most important part for me was seeing the big bad revealed.
Yes.
That he came here to really finish the job, that Kryptonian escaped, and he's not sure if the humans are hiding this being or not. And, he's throwing threats out there saying, if you're nuts enough to do this, reveal this person to me, because if you don't, it's over for all of you. We will get to him eventually, but I'll destroy all of you in the process. And, we're perfectly fine with that because we did it to his world, so why not yours? And I am convinced this big bad would have destroyed this world regardless.
Oh, yeah. Why take a chance? That would have been the big bag's rule. Even if he got to Clark, even if he killed off Clark, still, why take the chance? You know what? Maybe they learned something from the Kryptonians, and part of the Kryptonian society is still alive. Let's destroy the world just in case. And definitely, I like the fact that this is, again, a very big bad. This is a killer. This is a destroyer, but he's not just your traditional evil villain kind of, I am going to conquer this world. No, he's got a job to do. It's part of a professionalism that he has to completely destroy the Kryptonian race, so he's going to get the last one.
One of the things that I really loved here was Clark has not been Superman before now. We've seen him help people out, sure, but we haven't seen him take on a role where he's really been what we consider quote-unquote Superman. This situation has provided an opportunity where he had to make a choice. Do I stay hidden? Do I protect myself? Or do I come forward from the shadows? And do I stand tall and defend my new home? The home that, not my new home, the home that I only have known. I mean, I was adopted. So it's funny how, as I've gotten older, I connect with Superman in a way that I never expected. I see this guy who's like, I've never known any other parents. And I've never known any other parents. You know what I mean? My parents are my family. So this guy, the Kents raised him. And I so get this vibe where this guy's like, this, Smallville's my home. I was raised here. You're going to come here and tear the place down? And how can I stand here and take this when I have an opportunity to maybe do something? He doesn't know if he can defeat this foe. And I think that's, to me, a stronger strength to this story. We are seeing a Superman who's going up against a foe he doesn't know he can beat. And if there's anything that says Superman to me more than that, I don't know what it is. This is a foe who can take him down. This is a foe that could kill him. As far as he knows, he doesn't know. They destroyed his home world. This is a foe who is getting powers from the same power source as him. So, what other incentive is there other than that it's morally the right thing to do? I need to step up here. And he's doing it. And I love that moment because it's not something it's easy to do. It's not something all of us would do. I don't know what I'd do in this situation. And I'm not saying that to say I'm a coward or anything like that. I don't think anyone does. It's one thing to sit here and say, oh, I would do the same thing. I would step up in there. You don't know until you're in the situation. Look at what he's facing and what he's seeing. I'd like to think I would. And I'd hope after reading a story like this it would inspire me to. But you don't know until you're in that situation. That made me respect him even more, that when he's standing up there in those moments and pondering, I'm like, I get it. I would be pondering too. I like to think I'd take the same leap. I don't know. I like, too, that their first appearance from him, their first time to notice that he was there, was on Jimmy's camera.
Yeah, nice blur. What was that? I don't know, kind of deal, yeah.
And it was something that I thought was interesting in it.
I like that Clark, did that initial thing where he takes a piece of the alien tech and gives it to that one scientist that he was, possibly looking to get a job from. I thought that was a cool play on his part, not thinking, I will defeat all of them by myself. No, he was taking it to them, saying, hey, look at this, study this. Maybe you can figure out a weakness of these ships that we could use against it. I thought that was, again, a cool usage of who Clark is, kind of where he's at in his life, at this point in time. He's not that, set superhero that goes, I can deal with this all myself. No, he's like, hey, I need help here. I need to call for backup, if you will.
Except the backup didn't pay off, so did he really need that backup?
Well, he thought he did. I'm not saying he
it's just for the proof that sometimes maybe you just don't need that backup because the backup's worthless.
All depends on who you back up. You just got to call the right people.
Right. And this guy is clearly, Mr. Goatee guy? Clearly not the right people.
Yeah. Well, I did like the fact that he was saying, hey, yeah, come on, go to Martha's Vineyards. Even aliens need Martha's Vineyards. Even they need a vacation.
I like the short, flashbacks periodically that kind of showed the Kents and seeing him in his childhood and how Mom was making a costume for him out of the thread that was in his ship. This indestructible thread, and how it was very difficult to craft something because you had to unweave all of the thread, and then you had to put it through a loom, and it was really hard to do because the stuff's practically indestructible. I loved that moment of kind of just telling us a little bit about the nature of his outfit, the nature of how everything was put together, the nature of the Kryptonian technology. It was gradually revealed through all this. What do we know about his stuff? Because we don't know everything. But we do know certain things because of experiences from his parents and experiences from his childhood. And I like that. I liked the way that this was introduced. Instead of introducing it all at the beginning, per se, I think that it kept the pacing really nice. We were ready for an interlude here before we jump back into the main story and more threats from the big bad and seeing just more danger again, the respect from Lois and Jimmy that Clark gets at this moment, watching these guys in these moments with cars being thrown and exploding around them, giant robots in front of them. These are moments where Jimmy and Lois could have died multiple times in these situations. There was no guarantee they were walking out of this. Talk about no backup. There was nobody there to back them up except each other. And, a lucky word from Lois here, a step to the right there, are all that kept them alive. So there's a lot of luck involved in this need to report the truth. that they had there. And Clark seeing this bravery from them, and I think this was an important part of the piece to explain why he joined the Daily Planet, because we see later that it was respect for these two that helped him join the planet. It was something that motivated him, was seeing them and what it really means to get the truth from a story and to report it to people. No, they didn't have his powers. They didn't have those skills to help them. Yet they were there because it was the right thing to do for who they are as individuals and what they believe in a newspaper. And that was an interesting reason to bring him to the Daily Planet. It's more than just that he would be right in the middle of all the news, so then he could, react better. It was a sense of, these are the type of comrades I would like to stand by. And their sense of the truth and their objective sense of the truth is something that I would want to be a part of. It's kind of a bigger message to this whole thing. And I can make a difference both in my mask and out of my mask. And I think that, to me, my favorite Daily Planet stories are the ones where Clark makes a difference when he's a reporter as well as when he's Superman. And I think a lot of times writers who find that correct balance of utilizing the Daily Planet in their stories really grab a lot of times what works in Superman for me. And this works here. I really enjoyed this element of it all the way through because we're seeing an establishment of why he would even join this paper. And that's cool.
Oh, yeah. And I loved, again, just seeing Jimmy Olsen and just seeing how they stood up to this mecha robot, just willing to die for the truth, willing to die for what they believe in, for, in a way, it's, I don't want to even say their religion, but it is kind of, it's their faith, it's their belief, it's who they are, it's, what is the right thing to do. It's when you get to that moment, you always say kind of like what are ethics? It's what you do when no one's around. When no one can see what you're, actually doing, that's the ethics. That's, who you are. That's the kind of person you are. If you could get away with a crime, then there's no way anyone would catch you. Would you do it? Right here, these two just show that it doesn't, they would not do the crime. They would stand up for what they believe is right, what they believe the truth is. And I think that is just a cool kind of, moment to see. Again, you can, as much as I loved Clark and Superman in this and how the birth of it, it's the supporting cast that just really made me say, wow, on this series.
I think, again, when he was talking to Mom about the colorful suit and everything like that, Mom's idea that the mask is going to be when you're not in costume. When you're in the costume, you've got to be, I think it's very different. It's the opposite of what Batman does. In many ways. Although, it can be argued that Bruce Wayne is truly Bruce Wayne when he's dressed up as Batman. I do think that the idea of a mask is really, I love the opposite use here and the way that it's really hit home as far as that Clark really needs to be 100% himself and bring his values of who he is out at those moments. And it'd be interesting. We could talk in depth about Batman because I think there's a powerful argument that Batman really is who he is when he's in costume as well. But this is interesting to see here just how he and Mom are talking so comfortably about this suit and why it's needed back in the day. What did you think about the little tweaks to the suit?
I always like tweaks to the suit. Especially when you're dealing with a different universe, you have your own statement as to what this suit looks like. I've never really been that, it's got to be exactly like this, or it's got to be, personalize it. Let an art team have fun and, kind of flex their creative muscles with it. For me, the tweaks were minor. They weren't like, this big glaring, like he's not wearing a mini skirt, or anything like that. So, okay, this is a Superman costume still. There's nothing that I would say that's un-Superman-ish.
Yeah, I don't want to see Superman in a miniskirt. I really don't.
Or a kilt.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah.
But, this is Superman costume. I thought this was good. I enjoyed it. I liked it.
I like
to add to the fact that it's Earth 1, it's a different universe, so there can be differences.
I like the tweak on the boots. I like the tweak on the... I don't want to say patchy design of it, but how you got to see a little bit more where elements of the costume connected together without going too far, because I think you could have overdone that. I think sometimes that's done. This wasn't done. It was done subtle enough that I thought it added a unique look to this Superman, where it's clear it's the Earth 1 Superman, but yet it's still very iconic. It's still very much at its core what works for Superman. So, amen, I totally agree with you on it. This is a costume I want to see more of. I want to see a continuation of this just because of it. Because the second we see him step out for the first time in the costume, the full suit, I was like, whoa, that is really cool.
Yeah. I tell you, when he's suiting up, it was going through my head, the dun 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 as he's suiting up, and just that bum ba dun 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 kind of moment when he's standing there, in the full costume. I had that going through my head with this. So this was Superman. This was a great reveal, and that great first moment of him in the costume that you want to get in any type of origin type Superman story. These are the moments that I live for.
Talk about honoring an adversary. It was something how it was interesting how the robots were never meant to defeat him. They were only meant to lure him to him so that he could defeat him himself. And that was interesting how it was really important for him to defeat the last survivor of Krypton, considering their history and everything that had gone on between them, why that was important. These are race enemies. And Clark isn't even aware of that's really the issue on the table, as far as to the full extent of what that really means, because he wasn't there. Yes, he's heard it, and there's all that, but it's a little bit different than actually being there and having that emotional attachment to it that this guy does. And that was an interesting development of a villain. I really loved the villain choice in this as something a little bit more original.
Oh, definitely. And I loved seeing just this action sequence as the fight starts off, and it just, Clark's, gets caught off guard by the first punch. Okay, time for round two, flying back in there, and just the look on the villain's face as this is going on. He was truly enjoying what he was doing, but you also see that he's not just, this villain who wants to destroy this world, destroy Krypton. He is a thinking, planning villain. And I love seeing that, he came in multiple phase. He was even just kind of a distraction on Clark as to his plan B going on.
We're just going to see who is these creatures that visited him. Because they're obviously the ones, am I right, that at the end he's referring to he doesn't know the truth, he doesn't know about. So there's actually room now for these creatures to then be revealed later, correct?
Yes, that's completely how I took it. There's this unknown people who caused the death of Krypton. Part of me was wondering, maybe what if the people who visited this other race to how to kill Krypton was maybe Zod and his crew? So maybe it was other Kryptonians who wanted the planet destroyed, or something like that.
Coloans, like Brainiac?
It could have been Coloans, yeah.
Or is it another original entity? I don't know. I'll be curious to see where that goes. I want to say one other thing. Back in the sequence when it first kicked off, when Superman finally flew in, I loved seeing in Jimmy's eyes the Superman symbol in it as he's looking through and going, ditto. Yeah. I wouldn't miss this for the world, Lois Lane. They're talking about how we're in the middle of the news. We are in the middle of this big, huge story, and wow. How can we miss this? This is what we live for. This is what this job means to us. Talk about people who, they are at their core, these reporters, and being a part of this is something that means if you're not a reporter and you don't have their values and you don't understand what it means to be a true reporter, you can't understand what that moment meant to them. I like that we got a brief glimpse into that, and I get it. There was something about that and the way that was developed. Great use of showing why would Clark respect these people. This is another moment that shows why he would. I thought that was cool.
And I liked artistically, there was that nod to that classic Superman original, Action Comics cover where he's got the car over his head.
Yeah.
And they tied it in, but they modified it, made it, military type vehicle that he's got over his head. But it was obviously just a nod to that,
Homage.
to that classic, iconic, Action Comics #1 issue, cover. So I was like, damn, that was. I saw that. You kind of get a little grin, going, "Oh, cool! Glad they saw that. Glad they did that."
I did like the expansion once again on Krypton and its destruction being more than just a planet dying because of a freak accident. Maybe there was a conspiracy. Maybe this was murder. And seeing now that these drills coming, that this could be repeated on Earth. And that this is something that, now this is adding this whole sense of big bad coming in. And we see it at again, Russia, Egypt, France, Tibet, Africa, United States, just going on all over the place. And just Clark realizing in awe, you're not just after me, you're out to destroy this place. Why? You've got me here. Why are you doing this? And that's something where it causes his rage. In that moment where he's unleashing right there, realizing that the people of his adopted planet, the planet that he's come to know and love, this is his home. It's always been his home. He was, here as an infant. This would enrage him. You aren't destroying my world. You put them back. We've got a problem here. And just this is this moment where he's able to let loose in a way that he never thought he was going to be able to. This guy is hitting him with the full brunt of their power. And putting him down in a way where Clark might not be able to get out. I loved seeing how this worked out with Lois and Jimmy stepping up at this moment to kind of help him. With the whole truck thing.
Oh yeah, dude. I tell you, that was, and one, I kind of chuckled again, just seeing the crazy reporter, the crazy photojournalist that Jimmy Olsen became. And he hands Lois his camera because I don't want this to get broken, but let me see if this is going to work. And, it's just that driving through that energy field. And it was just that cool, just that moment, the chain, and he grabs, and you're just like, come on, do it, go. You're sitting there reading, and I'm reading this, and I'm like getting into the energy behind it. I would love to see this actually made into a movie, because just that sequence right there alone would have everyone just going, yeah, go, kind of, stuff.
Here's a line where I saw John Schneider saying it. I know how you must feel some days, like the weight of the whole world is pressing down on you. And there's no one to talk to, no one to help you, when you'll feel utterly and totally alone. But when that time comes, you'll know what to do. How can I decide what to do with my life when I don't know who I am? For as long as I can remember, I've always been on the outside. And then Jonathan comes back with this, among them, but not of them, as it says in the Bible. Yeah. And then he goes, yes, I guess aside from you and Mom, there's no one I can talk to, no one I can count on. And in this moment, he's given that moment where he realizes, wait a minute, there are some people I can count on. Look what these people did. In the face of all of it, they found an opportunity to come and save me. They were there for me in a way that nobody else would be, at a risk that was so great to them at that moment. And this moment where the two of them, he's out there, and we've got this exclusive shot of him. We've got this exclusive moment with him. We've got this chance to be a part of this, to be a part of something more, and showing this bravery in this whole thing. Wow. I totally get, Clark's love for Lois in this moment. I can see why he would remember this girl after this and be saying, I'm interested. I get it, and this is a pivotal moment where they all bonded over this, and looking at Jimmy Olsen and saying, hey, you're my friend. This is my pal, Superman's pal, Jimmy Olsen. This moment together right now has bonded them. They don't know it. They know that they're bonded with Superman sort of at this moment, but they don't know they bonded with Clark Kent. And I love that this is something that he will have to explain later when he walks into the planet in his quote-unquote disguise. And I loved that about this whole bit. It was a great setup to building not just, and you said it before, not just the main player of Superman, but also his supporting cast, who are critically important to the best Superman stories. Now,
amen.
Yeah. As we go on, we get to see the final battle between these two. And the final moments where he's really got to realize that I love that Clark in the fight is listening to everything this guy's saying. He's got to realize this guy's giving him clues. He's told him things that he didn't intend to reveal, that his ship is almost as strong as Kryptonian armor or Kryptonian metal, almost as strong as Kryptonian technology. And he's realizing, wait a minute, I got a big piece of Kryptonian tech right here. And I'm going to drive it right through your technology right at this moment. This is my one way to get to the core. And if this means my death, so be it. If this means the end of me, so be it. But I am not going to let you destroy an entire planet for me. I'm taking responsibility. I'm taking ownership. And I'm taking you down because it's the right thing to do. This is what I stand for. This is what I'm all about. Ooh.
Yeah. I know we talked earlier when he initially goes into battle, he doesn't know that he'll survive it. Right here, he's finding out this is going to kill you. And that is just the statement of, okay, I'm probably going to die. This is the moment where I'm probably going to die, but if I'm going down, I'm going to help these people who need me right now. Earth needs him. Earth cannot survive this battle without Superman. So he's got to be the one to step up. There's nobody else. He's the first and last line of defense for this planet. He's their last hope. And I really just ate that up. Just the fact that, Clark, Kal-El, Superman, whatever you want to refer to him as, is saying, okay, this is it. Let's do this. And you got to love a hero who does that.
This so wrapped up in a way that I just loved. Because when the story was over, it wasn't done. And I'm glad that they showed a nice setup to, first of all, the worldview of somebody like him. They would be untrusting. Did he set all this up? This is our media today. Did he plan all of this in order to make himself look good? To infiltrate our, quote-unquote, our society? What are his real motivations here? And that's where the mask comes in. Gives him an opportunity then to act in the Daily Planet. I loved how he used the story for himself that we got to see at the end of which I thought that was a great thing at the end. We actually got to see Clark's interview with Superman.
Yes,
that was awesome.
I always love it. I always love it when Clark gets the job at the Daily Planet because he scooped Lois on the Superman story. I always just love that because I know eventually Lois is going to learn the truth and she's going to be so miffed at him that he scooped her, but he didn't really scoop her because he was just interviewing himself. I always love seeing that.
Yeah, and it was very well done in this because it served as a great way for Clark to say, okay, the world's got this certain view of me. Not everybody, but clearly knowing that the world's divided on what to think of me because they're not sure. This is my chance to kind of let myself be known, honestly, without any filter and without any spin. He's actually learned a lot from Lois and Jimmy and Perry here, saying that, the best thing is just to get the truth out there without any emotional attachment, without any involvement. You know what I mean? Yeah. So he told a story and he wrote it in a way where it really wasn't emotionally involved. He just put out the truth in the paper. And that's what the interview was. And I think he wrote a better article because of his involvement with these people. And I think that was one of the cool parts about reading that article at the end. Having read this story first was seeing how much he learned from them. So it wasn't, that piece was very much put together as a team effort, whether the others realized it or not. Obviously they didn't. But I thought that was something that we as the readers got to realize.
And I tell you, remember how earlier when we were talking about the book, how I always think whenever I'm doing a good Superman origin type story that I think, what would I do? How would I handle it if I had the powers? Mm-hmm. That final interview that Clark has with Superman really kind of, for me, cemented that the best way to handle Superman is how he's doing it here. There's a lot of stuff that people can solve on their own, and you got to let them do it. You got to let them rise up to the challenge of the day-to-day emergencies, the day-to-day criminal element. Superman needs to be that, that threat that is beyond what the normal human can do. It's that natural disaster. It's the alien invasion. It's those, events out there that, no matter how strong-willed the human race is, they won't be able to deal with it. That's where Superman has to come in. And really with this story, I think part of it was probably because it was a written, a purely written text. It was the report. It was the interview with Clark, that Clark does. I think all that just added to just the weight for me as to why he does what he does, why he doesn't get involved with the direct politics of the country or any other type of international line skirmish or stuff like that. And I think that for me was just a really cool way to lock it in place for me. And I was like, dang, that's a good explanation as to who Superman is and why he does what he does. I really, again, beginning had an emotional response, ending had an emotional response. Throughout the middle, I was just loving the story visually. That was the story I was reading as well as seeing. I was like, oh, wow.
I like that Lois knows something's up. I'm not saying that she knows he's Superman, but she knows that not all of Clark's story is adding up. She smells a story. How far she'll pursue that remains to be seen. But there's enough of that reporter's instinct that she's kind of like, hang on a second here, Kent. And I really enjoyed those moments because it added a little strength to her character. I don't want her to be gullible in that moment. I want her to be skeptical. And that was really cool and really well done. Yet there's something that she respects about his responses to everything as well. And there's enough of her that buys into it that she's willing to let certain things go for now. Not that they're completely gone, because she's still keeping an eye on him, but yet there was enough of truth. If she, she said, "Hey, if you're being truthful on this, I'm giving you a nod here." But that's where I was like, "Woo!" At the core, that really worked as well. Was that Cat Grant with Perry? Is that how you took that? Just in that one panel?
Yeah, that one little panel. That's what I thought.
That was cool. The Fortress of Solitude, or the Cave of Solitude, or the Tunnel of Solitude, whatever you want to call it.
Snow Cave.
Yeah. I'll be curious to see where that goes. If the ship will somehow, the technology in the ship will somehow allow for that opportunity to, are we going to see a more traditional fortress, or is it always going to be this? I don't know.
I think it's going to expand out. It's going to do something, But
it was cool. And that last shot, where they were waiting for the shot to see him come back, flying by the Daily Planet globe, was just beautiful as well. I don't know. It's everything about this. I didn't read this. Did you read this in one sit down? Because it took me a couple of sittings to read this.
I did it in one sit down.
Did you really?
I could not stop.
Yeah.
I could not. I sat down. I was like, "Oh my god! Wow! I put it down. I was like, "Wow! That was a read." And it was. I immediately said, "Okay, I got to reread this." And then there was a couple panels, like some of those action sequences. I was just sitting there looking at them and enjoying them, and just enjoying what the experience. This is one of those, multiple read throughs. Definitely my bang for my buck. I wanted so much more stories. I want more Earth 1 Superman. I want to see the Earth 1 Batman, Earth 1 Wonder Woman. I want to see everything that this universe has to offer.
Earth 1 Justice League, I'd like to see.
Yeah.
You know what, though? They can take their time with this. I think these are things that the quality level needs to be this. I think this set the bar extremely high, and I think it needs to remain there. I think there's nothing wrong with having something like this where, you get one or two a year, couple a year maybe.
Yeah.
And you just know that the quality is going to be top-notch. And, when you're done reading it, you're going to have this satisfying feel to it. I don't want these to be overdone, where we kind of go, geez, remember when they were really just, like, mind-blowingly cool? I don't want these to be just enjoyable, if that makes sense. I want it to be like, this made me salivate. This was great. And, there's those times where you get something like this, and it feels special. And, I want it to feel this special all the time. This is cool. I'm glad it's funny, we talked about, maybe we want to talk about this quickly, and we both said there's no way we can talk about this quickly. And it was a great read. Yeah, yes. I'm with you, though. Earth 1 Batman. Yeah. I am hoping that's still on the cards, and that's still, because I haven't heard anything about that other than when it was originally announced. So I'm hoping, and we got to see that great preview art of it, so I'm hoping that's still on the cards and still being worked on. I'm assuming they didn't want to release them, obviously, at the same time.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing my hope for that would be spring.
Yeah, that'd be nice. That'd be a nice, something to look forward to coming out, and then maybe next fall have another Earth one or something like that.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. If you get one or two a year, a year, I think would be just about right with this. And like you said, then spring and fall. You can count on just getting two of these a year. Very well done, high production values like this is. And I'm hoping this sells gangbusters. Not just for comic fans. I'm hoping this sells gangbusters for more of a casual audience that's looking to break into reading the superhero medium. Maybe Earth 1 Green Lantern. I don't know,
Oh, yeah. That'd be a good one. I'd like to see an Earth 1, maybe Aquaman. Have some fun with the characters and, maybe switch some stuff up.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens down the road with this. But a great start to a line that I hope just has a nice, rich future to it.
Holy caffeine!
Jim, I want to thank everyone for their patience on this unedited episode. This is a great opportunity for us to put together a show for you and hopefully get one out this week, and on some great comic topics that I thought were new and fresh and interesting. Next episode is definitely going to be the rest of the New York Comic Con material that we have. We're also going to be talking some new comics. We're going to have an episode coming up also revolving around listener voicemails, because we have a ton of those coming in that we want to get your thoughts on the show as well. So please keep those coming. It may be a whole episode devoted to listener voicemails. We don't know yet. It depends on how many we've got in and what kind of discussions they come from it. But we've got definitely plans for those as well. So those are going to be the next 2 shows. They're probably going to be a little closer together because of the fact they're going to be finishing up New York Comic Con and listener voicemails. I also want to make sure that we do a Green Lantern focused episode coming in there as well before we get into this crazy Batman stuff that's coming out, because we got a whole bunch of Bat stuff. We are going to cover every Batman book featuring Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson that's going to be coming out of these new releases, to talk about how we're liking those books, which ones are our favorites, because I think it's going to be interesting to see between the two of us which Bat books that we like. So that's going to be coming up in the show. We're going to be cover to cover every single new Batman book that's coming out, or, revamped creative team Batman book, for example, as they're coming out. So we're going to talk about all the Dick Grayson books and the Bruce Wayne. I think it's going to be fun.
Yes.
Jim, our sponsors for this episode, DCBService.com, where you can be checking out right now the brand new books. They're going to be coming to DCBService.com. Those great deals that, anywhere from 40 to 35 to 40 to 75% off. It's insane, the deals that they offer at DCBService.com. I always get excited to see the high-priced discounts that are going to be on there, because a lot of times that's a deciding factor for me on trying a new book. Especially when it's books that are outside of DC that I want to try to kind of expand my library. I do that a lot of times. I've been a big fan of that. Like when Vertigo was doing those $1 books, when you're 75% off, you're getting a lot of those books at like a quarter. Yeah. I mean, it's like you're kind of nuts not to try it at that point. But, I want to thank our sponsors, DCBService.com, for continuing to support, this great comic book medium with some amazing discounts. And then over at InStockTrades.com. Remember, the InStockTrades.com, this is a great time to be checking them out. There's a lot of great hardcovers and trades coming out that are on that wonderful glossy paper. And those hardcovers especially, it's, if I'm doing an absolute edition or something like that, I go to InStockTrades.com first, because the discounts are so high. And it offers an opportunity for me to read some material collected that I've always wanted to read at a price that I can afford. And especially when you get that order of $50 or more, you get that free shipping. That just adds to the discount. So check out our friends over at InStockTrades.com. We will be announcing in about a month or so another book of the month that we're going to be doing. We're going to come back to Preacher after we're done with this Batman exploration. And we're going to finish up that last arc of Preacher and then announce a new book. I want to make sure we kind of clean up everything that we haven't done yet that we wanted to do before we jump into that. But we will be announcing a new book of the month soon from our friends at InStockTrades.com. And Jim, we will see everyone next week.
Bye.
Flying through space and time, 1,000 different lifetimes. Faded for love and loss and incredibly clear sightlines. Swinging your mace around, such a practical outlook. Helping the JSA and occasionally supporting your own book. Hawkman, Hawkman. Eagle eyes can't see. Hawkman, your plan. And what you do to me. Hawkman. The villains are closing in. Be they Thanon guard or Egyptian, working so hard to thwart you and Hawkgirl's mission. The odds are not on your side, and danger seems to stack up. Things would be so much easier if